Welcome to basketballnews.com's NBA trade deadline show. We'll be here for the next 3 hours breaking down every rumor, every trade that happens. We might have an issue. It's saying on Twitter that the broadcast is not available. I know we're live on YouTube right now, but hopefully it is working on Twitter. We're going to look into that. But yeah, we'll be here for the next 3 hours. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. And we'll make sure that you guys don't miss any rumors or any trades that happened. I'm joined here by a number of our basketball news staffers. Appreciate everyone here joining us. Let's talk about some of the recent trades that happened. In the last 2 hours, there's been quite a few moves. Spencer, do you want to run through some of the recent moves, and then we'll make sure people didn't miss any of those?
Certainly, yeah. So the latest one was Bol and PJ Dozier going from the Celtics to the Magic. We also had a move between the Raptors and the Spurs, with Thad Young going to Toronto and Goran Dragic going over to San Antonio, and Goran Dragic is expected to be bought out from that. There was also a Blockbuster 4-team trade that was a little more interesting, but it ended up having Marvin Bagley going to the Pistons. Dante DiVincenzo goes to Sacramento. So does Josh Jackson and Trey Lyles. The Bucks are going to get Serge Ibaka to bolster their front court, and Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye are going to the Clippers. And then there's also a draft compensation going over to Milwaukee in that. So those were three of the moves that have happened so far today. We obviously know the ones that happened on Tuesday that probably made everybody's days a little crazy, but that is pretty much the summation of what's going on here. And by the way, too, on Goran Dragic, different people saying different things, but obviously the Mavs are going to be in the running for the vet point guard, Slovenian connection with Luka Doncic. So we'll see there. And got a couple reports about the James Harden and Sixers being in talks with the Nets. So we'll see if that ever comes to fruition, or if that's just going to be something that doesn't get done. And then there's also apparently a report that the Raptors had interest in Kristaps Porzingis, but probably with the Thad move, that probably wouldn't happen. But that's pretty much your update on the day, I would say.
So of those moves, anyone have thoughts, or is there any transaction that jumps out at anyone? We can kind of break these down first before we get into some of the other rumors that are out there. Any thoughts? Anyone?
And one thing I would like to say on a rumor, I mean, with Harden, it's interesting. I mean, regardless of how you stand on Harden, where he's at, where his value is at. I mean, if I'm Daryl Morey and he's set on that's probably his target in a Ben Simmons trade, I would be motivated personally to do it now, so you can get him for the rest of the year, get some usage there, rather than look at doing it in the summer where you wasted a good amount of games of a guy that's aging. And so I mean, personally, I don't have any inside sources or information on that, but I would be motivated to get something done today if he does think Harden is his best bet.
I'm curious, for those that don't know, Matt Babcock used to be an NBA agent. Now he's our NBA draft analyst at basketballnews.com. But I want to get your thoughts on this from an agent perspective. When you have a player that is not requesting a trade because he hasn't done it officially, according to Woj, but he does want out. We've seen he did the same thing in Houston. This has been something that's happened several times. How do you handle that situation as a player when your guy wants to be on the move and you're kind of talking to the front office about possible situations that, basically possible ways to get your guy out of there?
I mean, I think it depends on the situation and the relationship with that front office. I mean, every team in front office handles things a little bit differently. I think ideally, the idea is to have, a fluid, respectful relationship with the front office so that you can speak candidly about situations. So, if there's a situation where a player is needing to move on for a team or vice versa, the team with the player, you can talk about it, professionally and kind of work behind the scenes without there being any kind of drama. A lot of times we, as an agent, me or my colleagues, we would, discuss with teams, okay, this is not working. Do you mind if we start calling around with teams and kind of help facilitate and kind of present some ideas to push things along? And so that's something that happens. But again, I mean, it's all about having a good working relationship with that team. And I always stress, even when I'm advising agents today, when you're representing rookies or free agents going to a new team, make sure you're spending a lot of time in that city, taking care of your guy, but also making sure you're getting to know, the front office and making sure that relationship is solid and the lines of communication are wide open.
Now, we do have some updates from Woj. He says on ESPN just now that Harden negotiations are ongoing between the Nets and Sixers. He said there's motivation on both sides to get this done. I think there's a place today for these two teams to meet on a deal. So things have been interesting. Yesterday you had no talks happening. Windhorst said that we were in the deal zone and that it looked like something was going to happen. Now Woj is agreeing that, there's motivation on both sides. I think a lot of us were expecting this to be kind of a quiet day because we already saw Sabonis and LeVert and a lot of those guys already moved. But now Harden, huge name, obviously. What are your thoughts on this? Matt obviously gave his opinion here. Nikias, what are your thoughts on the possibility of Philly landing someone like Harden and how he would fit potentially?
Well, if they're able to pull it off, like Daryl Morey won the bet, which I think is going to be the big thing. Like he seemed pretty adamant that he was really willing to drag this thing out and get a legitimate star for Ben Simmons. And James Harden, even in the down year, still qualifies as such. As far as the fit, I'm a bit iffy on it. Like one of the question marks that I have about Philadelphia right now is kind of their defensive versatility. Joel Embiid is obviously very good, but T. Stiebel is obviously very good defensively. Beyond those two, there isn't a lot to write home about. And with Embiid, like it's pretty much a drop where they play them closer to the level. If you have James Harden in your system, you're going to be a switch team. He makes you a switch team because that's all he's going to do. So I wonder about how they cover for that. And then offensively, what does that pick and roll pairing look like? Joel Embiid is not obviously he's a better player, but he's not a Clint Capella-esque rim roller. So I wonder how that dynamic works. And if Harden isn't getting to the rim with the same level of juice that he has in years past, like I just wonder, is the pairing going to look better in name than in productivity? And with Harden having, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Nikias, I'm going to cut you off. I think one interesting point too, what you're mentioning, I'm going to piggyback off of. What else do they have to throw in that deal? I mean, if they're giving up Thibault, that's a huge part of their perimeter defense, and that makes them even more liable. And it sounds like they're, Thibault or Maxey probably would need to be included. If this is dragging out this long, for the Sixers' sake, I hope not, but it's gonna be interesting to see.
At that point, they're just like, I just kind of worry about this. If they do include Thibault, like, is this just going to be the East Coast version of the Utah problem, in which you have a Gobert, you have a Embiid in the paint, and they just have to cover so much ground? They have to be the defense. And if you face a team with multiple offensive options, like, what does that do for you? And that's before getting into the health stuff with either Harden or Embiid. Like, I have a lot of questions about this.
That's what I was going to say. Harden's missed several games in a row now with, hamstring soreness. And I think there's some people wondering if that's legitimate or if he's just trying to force his way out. And, but if he is injured and he's almost 33 years old, he's going to want a ton of money. They're talking about, a big deal that could pay him, $50-60 million by the end of that deal, per year. So it's interesting. I'm curious, what do you guys think of the way Harden's played this year? Because we've seen him struggle. I think a lot of people, like a lot of Sixers fans, I think, are thinking they're getting Houston James Harden because maybe they haven't watched as closely. But what are your guys' thoughts on what we've seen from Harden? And I know Brian Windhorst yesterday was saying that, basically he's been threatening the Nets and showing with this play, look, this is how bad things can be if you don't let me go, potentially. So that's kind of what Windhorst was suggesting. But what do you guys think of what we've seen from Harden? Mark, for example, like what are you seeing from Harden this year?
Yeah, it's been difficult because if you're just looking at the box score, like it looks great. To me, this is the worst Harden has looked in recent memory. Like the burst really hasn't been the same for him. I do think it's been complicated because the big man rotation in Brooklyn has been all over the place, to say the least. I think they've rotated in 5 or 6 guys, and it's just they've never really been able to have a lot click. He's never really had a lob partner this year until Claxton's come back, and even then, he's been a little bit all over the place. But again, I think part of the reason why they've struggled so much to find some consistency in their lineups has been Harden's inconsistent play. It's just hard to not factor that in. And then on top of that, his defense has been abysmal this year. Like, I do think there are times where you can discount that for guys with high usage, but this is like the way that people talked about Trae Young in prior years. That's what Harden's defense is like right now. And especially when you're somebody who's going to be on the court as much as he does on a team that doesn't already have a great defensive infrastructure, that it is rough.
We do have one update. Frank Isola says that the Sixers are offering Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and a first and second round pick. If they were to add Matisse Thybulle, that would get it done, according to Frank Isola. So, what do we think of that offer potentially? I mean, obviously they're still negotiating. The Nets are going to push for Thybulle, but it sounds like the Sixers are sticking to that offer. Thoughts on that possible package? Anyone?
Even still, I mean, I think that's a lot to give up. I know Seth Curry might not seem like a big name, but how he fits alongside Joel Embiid is a really good shooter, and you got your best shooter and your defender possibly if you include Thybulle there. So Thybulle and Curry and Ben Simmons is a lot, I would think. I think Philadelphia has to hold firm here and get maybe just Curry in this deal because I think Thybulle is so huge with the way, like Mark mentioned, Harden's defense has been this year. So I think they got to stand pat here, see what happens.
Anyone else have thoughts on that offer or, potential Harden fit in Philly?
I mean, I'd be curious to see what the picks are. I mean, what kind of protections are there? What years? But I mean, it sounds like Morey's one that usually try and stockpile picks. I mean, it's looking like to me if that's the offer. I mean, he's really valuing his young assets in Maxey and Thybulle. He's doing what he can to keep him, like I mentioned before.
We were talking about this on Slack earlier. I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been a stronger reaction to what James Harden is doing. I know last year in Houston, there was obviously a lot of outcry and backlash for the way that he kind of left that situation. But for this to happen a little over a year later with another team now, and I know they said that, he wasn't officially requesting a trade because he was worried that there'd be a negative reaction, but by putting it out there and leaking it and everything, he basically did. Are you guys surprised that, he's doing this, first of all, and then also just what the reaction has been to Harden in this whole situation?
I mean, I'll be honest, I think it is a little bit hard to have sympathy to a degree, but at the same time too, I mean, when he initially signed on and came in, I mean, you can't really project that things are going to go this way as they have with Kyrie.
True.
I know if I were in Harden's shoes, that would definitely wear me the hell out, and I would be pretty annoyed with this. But at the same time too, I just kind of wish that he would come out and ask for a trade publicly because he's done everything except that. And in some ways, I feel like it's just easier to cut the ties immediately than to, have the steady leak of stuff that we've had for the last 2 months. I mean, it's all just a matter of preference, I guess. But I think ultimately I come down in the middle. It's just, yeah, I wish that it wasn't happening, but I can't entirely blame him for it.
That's a fair point. I think that's, well said. Real quick, I do want to mention Keith Pompey reports that Thybulle is the only holdup for the Harden deal. So it sounds like what Frank Isola reported is correct. The Sixers just want to trade Simmons, Curry, a first and a second, but the Nets are pushing for Thybulle. So that's the update. We'll keep you guys updated as, different rumors pop up, and as trades happen, we'll analyze them. Sorry, go ahead. Whoever was about to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add off of Mark. I agree with a lot of what you said, that it's less for me about the fact that Harden is wanting out again, because obviously, like Mark said, there are plenty of pretty valid reasons, and more just kind of how he's gone about doing it. This is now the second team in a row where when he has wanted out, it's really been detrimental to the team, and he doesn't step away from the court, and he plays with really, really bad, poor effort for multiple games, and it's hurting the Nets. So that would be the larger concern for me, is he's done that with the Rockets now, and he's done it with the Nets. If things go south in Philly, is it going to lead to multiple games of just kind of turmoil? Versus, like Mark said, he could have just said he wanted to trade, explained the situation more clearly, and it probably would have helped everyone out a lot more and looked better for him too. So, yeah, for me, it's more of the process versus just the fact that he's wanting out.
Yeah, I know, Michael Scotto was on our Twitter Spaces last night kind of breaking down everything, and he said that whenever Harden was asked about this, a week ago, and we just, not refuting it, basically. It was just like, oh, those just reports, but he wasn't taking a chance to actually shoot this down. I think that's when everyone realized, oh, this is real. And in the organization, they realized that he wanted out. So, even though he hasn't officially said it, it's pretty clear that, he wants to change the scenery. Jake Fisher reports that Brooklyn has called rival teams, gauging trade interest in Matisse Thybulle, and the scenario the Nets are able to acquire the swingman from Philadelphia. So it sounds like Brooklyn's trying to see what they'd be able to flip Thybulle for, or maybe include a third team in this deal. But they're shopping the Thybulle before they even get him to see what kind of interest there is in him. Also, the Magic are waiving Michael Carter-Williams and Etuan Moore. So some housekeeping after what they did earlier today. Any more thoughts on this, Spencer? Do you have any thoughts on this whole situation?
I do. I think that the circumstances are absolutely understandable in which why James wants to get out of there. But it still does rub me the wrong way. Just that this is something that's happened twice now. I just don't think that a lot of these all-star talents understand how difficult it is to win a championship, first of all. And second of all, that, as soon as you hit one wall of adversity, you start running away. Like, I just don't like that. It's not an attitude that I think should make a team want to trade for you. I think obviously the skill set is there and he's an amazing talent, and he's done so much over. Go ahead.
Trade is done. Brooklyn Nets are trading James Harden to the Philadelphia 76ers for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and draft picks.
Wow.
All right. Thoughts?
Damn.
I mean, we've obviously been breaking down the possibility, but
well, now it happened.
Yeah. Wow. And like you said, I think you made a good point, Nikias. Daryl Morey has been saying that he's not going to move Simmons. People were like bashing Morey for not, taking a Kings offer or other offers out there. He was saying, I want a top 35 player, and he lands his best buddy, James Harden. Wow. Thank you guys for waiting until we're on our live to make this happen. We appreciate, that.
Thank God that
Drummond's in the deal too.
What?
Well, just
interesting.
Drummond's in it too. Two
And
first round.
Paul Millsap is
Oh,
also
so
in
it's two
there.
first round pick. Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, 2 first round picks.
And Paul Millsap going to Philly as well.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Thoughts?
I have a first question here. When's the last time a championship caliber organizations have made a trade of this magnitude to try and pursue a championship that year, and how often has it worked? Like that's the first question I have. Mid-season trades are tough, man. Like to
Detroit,
make work, like
that's maybe I'm painted by living in the Midwest, but Detroit's the last one I can think of with
like Sheed.
Yeah.
It's a gamble. I mean, it's obviously something that it's a win because you had a guy that wasn't playing all year. But I'm just also thinking from the side of when's this actually worked the year of? Like that's my question.
Clyde Drexler. I'm going to age myself.
Nice.
Wait,
Nice.
that was the Rockets, right?
Yeah, Rockets. It was Otis Thorpe for Drexler. I don't know if there's any other parts of it, but yeah, that one worked out for him long time ago.
I wanna shout out Daryl Morey first of all, as you guys mentioned. Props to him for reading this whole situation right, and he got a lot of criticism, but Lance's guy. And then Brian Windhorst yesterday was saying that this was going to happen, that we're in the deal zone and all that, and people were clowning him and saying that it was refuted, but clearly he knew something and was talking to someone. So shout out Brian too. Wow, this is crazy. So I think everyone was kind of saying the biggest name that would get traded was Sabonis or LeVert or McCollum, but here we are. We've talked about the James Harden fit. What do we think about Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, these guys on the Nets, and what that could look like?
I mean, straight up, I know some people will probably disagree, but I like Drummond for the Nets as a backup. I mean, I kind of hope that he doesn't have to start, but like they really have just struggled. I mean, I wrote about this a couple weeks ago, but I mean, they really were expecting a lot more from Blake, and he has not been the same guy as he was last year. That's thrown a wrench into a lot of their lineup constructions. As much as people want to clown Drummond, like he is a good player, man. Like I think you can question his fit on court at times, but he's going to provide some things for them on both ends that I think will stabilize things for them. I mean, adding Simmons, I honestly love the idea of Simmons playing alongside Kyrie and KD and what that can look like. I mean, that obviously defense has been their backbone prior to Kyrie coming over. I think they've still really struggled to find that same groove with him on the team. I think this makes it a lot more solidified and clear about how that's going to look, though.
Well, especially Simmons too defensively. I mean, he is so versatile. I mean, he really will help any team. That was a big loss for Philly this year, him not playing, because he sort of defended everybody.
We have some details on the picks. The Sixers are sending an unprotected 2022 first-round pick and a protected 2027 first-round pick, according to Woj. So some details there.
That's it?
Yeah, unprotected 2022, protected 2027. We don't know what the protection is on that 2027 one, but I guess that's one thing that I'm curious to see. Our producer Brian Fisher said, any idea when Ben might play for the Nets? I think the expectation has been whenever he gets traded that he's just going to come back. But I mean, he needs to work himself into shape, probably. Work out with the team. He's also been dealing with the mental health issues and everything there. So who knows when Simmons is going to be able to make his debut in Brooklyn too? That's something to watch as well. It is notable that that he got vaccinated. That was something that was reported by ESPN. So, rather than them having 2 part-time players potentially, he'll now be able to play all their games. This is crazy. I did not expect this to happen today. I'll say that.
It kind of feels like now the floodgates are going to open, so to say, for the next couple hours, because I think this is the holdup for what's been a quiet day so far. Now I think it's about to get really crazy.
I agree with
Pour
you.
one out for your social media managers. This is going to be a crazy 2 hours.
Yeah, seriously.
So anyone else have thoughts on what this Nets team could look like? KD, Kyrie, Simmons, Curry. I know we kind of broke down just a little bit, but anyone else have thoughts on this team? Because I talked about this earlier today. I wrote an article about the Nets, despite their 9-game losing streak and all the drama that was surrounding this team, they were still the favorite to win the championship this year by odds makers. It's kind of like the Lakers last year, where the odds makers, even when the team was losing and having all these injuries, they were not, changing their odds. The Nets were still the favorite. So now, moving it out Harden, who has been struggling this year, for these other pieces. What do we think about what this Nets team can do and what their ceiling is?
I like that they got size. Now that they have Simmons, that's going to probably be bringing the ball up. You're probably going to see a lot of Kyrie being kind of that faux shooting guard when they play together. I think just having that front line with Ben and KD, regardless of the rest of the team's defensive shortcomings, that you're gonna at least have some size. Like I've seen it working here in Cleveland when you're starting those guys next to each other. Like you're gonna at least have some range and some length. And I think it's a really solid. I think Ben's an excellent fit in Brooklyn, and now you're gonna have a shooter. You said Seth Curry's going along in the deal, something that they've been looking for. You still got Patty Mills there, to come off the bench and give you that spark. I like it for Brooklyn a lot. I always thought, and this is more of my opinion, so I'm sorry, but like before the Harden trade happened 13 months ago, that it was kind of overkill and they didn't really need it. They had KD and Kyrie, and this was also before being vaccinated and the mandate came into play. And I was just like, KD and Kyrie, I just want to see what that looks like and the pieces around them. So now you still have KD and Kyrie. You add Ben Simmons, who's younger, faster, and more up tempo. And I'm interested to see what that looks like next to those two when they do get the chance to play together.
I agree. I think short term, this gives them more depth. I like the fit with Ben Simmons, and then Spencer, like you said, long term, this definitely makes a lot of sense. You get a unprotected first round pick, which is not going to be a great pick, but at least it's a first rounder. Ben Simmons is significantly younger. Somebody in the next few years you could start building your team around a little bit. I think it makes sense.
Very interesting. So we still don't have the protections on the picks there. Waiting to see that. Let's see.
Oh, I thought it said unprotected for 2022. No.
Yeah, it is unprotected for 2022. We don't know what 2027 protections look like quite yet. So if we see that, we'll definitely mention that. Again, we'll be here for the next 3 hours breaking down all the trades that happen, all of the rumors. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, and we'll try to put them on screen and answer different questions. We also have plenty of other trades to break down and rumors to get to, but obviously this is a huge story. We have to break this down. Let's see. Anyone else have thoughts on either situation here or either team before we kind of move on?
I think from Philadelphia's side of things, it's really interesting exactly what could be going on with Harden and Embiid. I mean, that's going to be such a fun offensive combination. You keep Matisse Thybulle around as well. Shooting's kind of a concern now. You're kind of betting a lot on Danny Green and Furkan Korkmaz a little bit to really be sharpshooters the rest of the season. But in the meantime, I like to gamble a little bit more for Philadelphia. I mean, obviously you just turn an asset in Ben Simmons into at least a superstar player in James Harden, who was never going to play for you again in Simmons. So I like the deal from Philadelphia's side. I like it obviously a lot more for Brooklyn because I think that fit with Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons in the front court could be a lot of fun to watch. But I think it's actually a win-win for both sides, if I have to say. I
think that Philly, I don't know what happens with these guys in Orlando, but I think Philly should look at one of Gary Harris or Terrence Ross, depending on what happens. I know Terrence Ross has not had the best year shooting, but I feel like a change of scenery could help that. And then simply Gary Harris just isn't getting enough love this year. And he really filled it up the other night when I was watching. So if you want to really help your shooting, I feel like getting one of those two, at least you get somebody that's been a shooter in the past or is a shooter right now. But just thinking of options off the bat.
I see one comment here. People were asking if Ben Simmons will be able to play. Ramona Shelburne reported last week on ESPN that Simmons is vaccinated now. She also reported that he's working out and is in shape. He's been playing organized pickup ball around Philly. So who knows if he's in NBA game shape? We'll have to see that. But he will be able to play every single game for this new team. So worth mentioning that. I see some questions about that. Shout out Brandon Smith. We got a dunker spot listener here. Saying you can't wait to hear your breakdown on there, you and Steve. So appreciate that, Brandon. All right. So any other rumors that you guys are seeing that we want to touch on before we kind of move on to some of their moves that happened today? Let's see some more reactions coming here.
I'm not sure how you follow that up, honestly.
I know, right? Seriously,
Yeah.
I'm so glad it happened though.
That's a good point.
Like, I was worried we'd be like only talking about Eric Gordon and some more minor moves today, but I'm glad that we got some other deals here. Brandon,
The climax of the day happened early.
Any shooters either through other trades or the buyout market that could make sense? Really, I know Spence, you just mentioned one or two, but any other thoughts?
Try to pry Mike Muscala out of OKC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested to see if they have any other moves to make on the margin. I think somebody commented, do you think, James, that Tobias Harris will get traded? I feel like that's just really tough to see that happening. OKC has been willing to take on bad money, but that is a lot of money and a lot of years left still. So I'm just interested to see, but like you're mentioning, I mean, I don't know who's necessarily available on the perimeter like that, but we'll see, man.
I mentioned him. Eric Gordon is out there. We'll see if he gets moved today. I know a lot of teams are checking in about him. Let's see. Chris Haynes says Brooklyn will take its time getting Ben Simmons acclimated, but he welcomes a change of scenery and has already had conversations with Kevin Durant, and they're all on the same page. So we'll see when he makes his debut. That could take some time. Let's see. One question I do want to ask you guys. This is kind of changing topics a little bit, but I was on some of the Twitter spaces earlier and heard a lot of fans talking, and one of the big players that everyone's mentioning is Russell Westbrook. And I think we all know that it's very unlikely that he gets traded today, and there's been reports that suggest that as well, just because that contract is so rough. But what do you think the Lakers can do? Because that's been a big question I've heard. I'd imagine they're going to be active in the buyout market because they don't have a ton of trade assets. There were rumors that they were shopping Taylor Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn and 2027 first-round pick. So they've been trying to have tons of conversations, but I don't know if they have the assets to make a splashy move. What do we think the Lakers can do with how bad they're struggling, and reports that the players recognize that big changes have to be made?
I think we've seen in a couple reports. I know Taylor Horton-Tucker and a pick was in a Mass Live report that they could get Josh Richardson from the Celtics. I don't know if that's a major needle mover, but Richardson's had a quietly pretty productive, solid year. And I don't know at this stage if that would still happen, but that just gives you kind of an idea for the type of player they're looking for and maybe just the stature of player that they can go get. I know there was a report, I think from Michael Scotto last night, about the possible 3-team trade with the Knicks and the Raptors. I don't know if that's still an option anymore. I forget if Dragic was in it, so that might have taken it out. But yeah, it seems like they are looking for guard wing type players who can shoot. At least I guess that does make sense kind of as a quick on paper surface level look. But yeah, again, for Lakers fans, don't expect a third star or anything.
I want to say that 3-team deal, the talks were classified as mild, and it seems like there's nothing imminent there. So, and like you said, I think some other pieces have already been moved that were part of that. I want to say Michael Grange from Toronto reported that the talks hadn't really gotten anywhere. So, yeah, we'll see on that. Anyone else have thoughts on what this Lakers team can do? Because something has to happen, and everyone seems to recognize that, but I'm not sure what assets they really have.
Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe, honestly, that could be maybe the main option. But I think a couple of options that I like, maybe are flying under the radar a little bit, are Torrey Craig in Indiana And then another one I think would be, like you mentioned earlier, Spencer, like a Terrence Ross. I think one of those guys can make a lot of sense with the Lakers. They need some versatility on defense. They need someone who can at least shoot the ball a little bit as well. So those guys don't have that big of salaries. I know Torrey Craig is around $4 million. Maybe Terrence Ross, I think, is around 10. So maybe they move pieces around there and make it happen. But I think, honestly, those are two guys to watch out for there because they just need a little bit of a punch off the bench. But they're so strapped flexibility. They don't really have many options.
Real quick,
Doesn't
we do
seem
have an
like
update.
Buddy Hield's going anywhere, but Buddy Hield, that's a name.
Yeah, that's true. Apparently the Pacers are trying to flip him. Scotto reported that he could be on the move today. So interesting there. Woj says that the Sixers will get the 2022 first-round pick unprotected with a right to defer to 2023, and the 2027 first-rounder will be protected 1 through 8. The 2027 pick would roll over to 2028, protected 1 through 8 again. The pick then turns into 2 seconds and $2 million in 2029 if it doesn't convey. So there's those details. Any thoughts on that?
That right to defer is sneaky interesting to 2023. I know we have a lot of more detailed draft experts here, but the 2023 draft is supposed to be pretty stacked, I think, throughout. So if they don't, maybe if the pick's low here, or they could just wait for a stronger draft next year. I think that's kind of interesting.
What do you think of that, Matt?
I mean, the 2022 draft, I like it at the top end. I think the depth isn't the greatest. It was funny. I was talking with an NBA executive earlier today, and their team's got a couple second-round picks, and asking my thoughts. I'm like, sell them. I was half joking, but no, it's just okay. I mean, I think there'll be some good players, but it's not overwhelmingly deep.
And then how does 2023 compare? If they do push it back 1 year and they can get it in 2023 instead, how does that compare?
Yeah, I mean, 2023, I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. As far as depth, I mean, it's so early to really project the depth of the draft. I mean, the second round's filled out with guys that really make jumps between now and the fall. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it unfolds.
Let's see. So I'm seeing other reports pop up here. The Sixers now have James Harden's bird right, so he'll be eligible for a 5-year, $269 million contract with Philly if he declines his $47.4 million player option. That would be $61.7 million cap hit 5 years from now when he is 38 years old. So thoughts on that, just the financial side of this. I mean, obviously Morey wanted Harden. He went and got his guy, but that's a huge contract. And Harden's 33. We talked about this in our last stream. He's played, 36,000 minutes. He's dealt with some injuries. Thoughts on paying him that kind of money?
I don't want. It sounds not nuanced enough to say that I don't really care, but I mean,
No,
as much as we've talked about how rough it's been with James Harden, he got his guy. He did what he wanted to do. James Harden is still a very damn good player when he's at his best. I just don't really know what other great option there was out there that secures you a better window for the next year or two, barring injury. Like with how well Joel Embiid is playing, I know some people like to go like, well, yeah, he's playing like an MVP right now, but you don't know what it's going to look like next year. But I mean, exactly. You MVP years are just not guaranteed like this. I mean, Joel has been the best player in the NBA since about Christmas time, and he's just playing at a historic rate. And I just don't think you can project that moving forward. Like, as much as he might still be, all NBA, top 10, top 5 player the next couple of years, I mean, you have to make the most out of this window right now and figure it out after.
Right here, I like this comment here. I actually wrote about this earlier today. So after everything that happened, KD, Kyrie, Harden played 16 games together, 364 minutes. And this season, they've only played 2 games together. So pretty wild to think, whenever that deal happened, everyone was freaking out and thinking about how this could be the next dynasty. And then everyone went even crazier whenever they added, LaMarcus and Blake Griffin and all that. And now 1 year later, still a great team, still a great position, but that trio is broken up. So, I mean, a lot of the things that happened, as Mark mentioned, couldn't really have been predicted, whenever everyone was celebrating those moves back then, but pretty crazy to see that run end after just 16 games together. One player
It kind of reminds me when the Lakers put together that team when they had Kobe and Dwight Howard and they traded for Nash and everybody was going nuts. And
yeah,
I think it's sort of a hard part of putting together a team of aging stars. I mean, feels like it gets riskier and riskier the older the guys get,
For sure. Yeah. One question here I want to hit on. We think Grant gets dealt today. Jeremy Grant's one of the names that's been out there a lot in trade rumors, one of the bigger names. We had Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype on our Twitter Spaces last night, and he said that he thinks that Portland is the team to watch. It sounds like Detroit's asking price for Grant has been 2 first-round picks or a promising young player in a first-round pick. So we'll see if they're willing to budge from that. But Washington has also been
new
mentioned
trade.
as a possibility.
Sorry
we
to
have no trade.
interrupt. Yeah, Sham Sharani just reported the Celtics are trading Josh Richardson to the San Antonio Spurs for Derek White, which I have no idea how that trade just happened.
Wow.
That makes
I
no
love
sense
that.
to me
Boston. What the
whatsoever.
heck?
Boston
Wait.
just got a home
I
run.
mean, that's amazing for
Wow.
Boston.
Wow.
There has
Holy
to be more
cow.
to that, right?
That's all that I'm seeing right now.
Good for
Oh my
Boston.
gosh.
Good
If that's
for
all it
Boston.
took, some other teams should be upset. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
honest.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Derek White is exactly what Boston needs, right? Like he checks every single box for what they're looking for, pretty much, and he's a perfect fit next to Tatum and Brown.
I love
Wow.
that. Oh my
That's
god,
an
their
extremely
defense is
good
going to be
fit.
even better now. This is
Yeah.
wow. Okay, I'm in love with this. And Derek just kind of needed a change of scenery too. I'm hoping his offense will get going
He did.
finally.
Yeah, no, he did. They've got DeJounte there. They're grooming Primo. They've got, Keldon. Like they've got their next gen. So them to go on.
Okay.
give
Also,
him-
not to totally pull off, but I wouldn't be shocked now if we see Pirtle get moved because this feels very much like. Now, I don't want to just say going in full on a rebuild, but like by moving Derek, they're pretty clearly looking to play Primo and some of their younger guys more as the season goes on.
Yeah. No,
we
I
saw
agree
that
with
with that
that.
other rumor about the Pirtle rumor with Charlotte, how they were getting PJ Washington, Kai Jones, very raw young player, and then I think they were going to get a first round pick back. That was at least talked about, so that would line up with what you said.
No, I think it's interesting that too. I mean, obviously, I'm the draft guy here, but San Antonio's slotted to have a high lottery pick, and we're going to be converting our big board to a mock draft as soon as the NBA regular season ends, and moving White for Richardson. I mean, Richardson only has one more year left on his deal. He's a little bit older than White. Kind of opens up maybe they might be looking at one of those wings. So Derek Murray and I will be talking about that later.
Yeah. Here we go. It's Josh Richardson and a first round pick. Chris Haynes just added that. For a
That's
second,
still-
I was like, what's
That
going
still
on here?
just doesn't
Yeah.
seem
But
like.
Well,
still
that's-
a great deal for Boston. Wow. So for people that may not have watched as much Derek White, can you guys break down, some of his strengths and weaknesses? I'm sure a lot of Celtics fans right now are tuning in, trying to know what they got in White. Can we kind of break down his game a bit for those fans?
Nikias, you want to go back and forth on this one? I know I have to say, but I know you guys have to say too.
Oh God, I can't believe they got Derek White for Josh.
I'm at a loss, man.
Jesus. One, Derek White is one of the best point of attack defenders on earth. So I think you start there. Josh Richardson in the first. That is insane to me. Okay, anyway, the point of attack defense is very good. Also a smart passer, smart pick and roll player. I worry about the shot a little bit. The 3-point numbers have been wavering over the last few seasons, but he's a smart player, can still operate off the ball a little bit just because he knows how to space the floor, knows how to read scrambling defenses. And I can't get over the defense. Boston has been an elite defense for pretty much most of the year. Now you're adding Derek White to that. 48 minutes of Marcus Smart or Derek White is insane to me.
I mean, I would have Derek on one of my all defense teams right now. He's been that good this year. Offense, I concur with Nikias on the shot. I'm hoping that a new environment will help him out with getting that right again. But I mean, he's quality running pick and roll. He's a little bit more of a combo guard offensively, but he's capable of running pick and roll. He's capable of getting your offense set. Good decision maker, quality passer. Like I think he's the exact kind of guy that Boston needs. He's not going to carry the offense for you, but I think he can take a little bit of the load off of Jason Tatum from running things. I love the addition so much, man.
Did they
Ethan,
include details on what the pick is?
I don't think so, not yet. But as that pops up, we'll definitely provide that information.
And with
Ethan,
Josh Richardson,
yeah.
Richardson, going over to San Antonio, does that open up more time for Romeo Langford? And I'm guessing Aaron Nesmith might get a little bit more time too if he's in the rotation.
Right now, it looks like it. Yeah, no, I think, Nikias and Mark obviously nailed it, and Derek White's going to be really fun with Marcus Smart. But I think depending on what the Celtics end up deciding to do with Dennis Schroeder too, I think he makes a lot more sense whether he's alongside Marcus Smart, because I know the Celtics really struggled a lot of times when Smart and Schroeder shared the ball and were in the backcourt together, just with kind of whose responsibilities were what at certain times. I think the fit will be a lot cleaner if you're going to have White and Smart in the backcourt together. Maybe White is coming off the bench, and all of a sudden he can kind of be a lead facilitator, but also just someone who can move the ball a lot better than Dennis Schroeder can. The rim pressure is going to be interesting because that was something that Schroeder brought, but I don't think it's that much of a loss anyway, especially with the way Tatum and Brown have been playing as of late, and the way Tatum's been able to get to the rim. It's been really good. And yeah, the defense is going to be pretty crazy. And I think it also takes a lot of pressure if you do decide to move on from Dennis Schroeder and you trade him in the next hour and 20 minutes, like it doesn't put too much pressure on Romeo Langford to come off the bench and be like a primary ball handler at any point. Derek White is someone who you at least know can do what he needs to do and make the right pass, which I think in the past between signing Jeff Teague, signing Dennis Schroeder, I feel like the Celtics front office has overthought a lot about what they need out of their backup point guard.
Romeo Langford
And
also included in the
so-
trade.
Never
There you
mind.
go.
Yeah, don't even
Because the Spurs
Don't
need
even-
another 2-3. Yes.
So it's starting to make a little bit more sense, this trade. At first, it seemed kind of crazy. Now to get some more information, the pick, Langford, it makes a bit more sense, but still seems like a great addition for the Celtics. Is there a chance that Josh Richardson could be bought out potentially by San Antonio? Is that something that we should keep an eye on maybe?
makes sense. I think he's making like 11.5 million maybe. And yeah, I feel like that's not, if you're going to.
He's been included in some wild trades
Yeah.
in the last
Yeah.
few years.
They're gonna
Crazy.
definitely want to get Devin Vassell more playing time and Keldon Johnson more playing time than him. So it wouldn't surprise me, but they also need to field a roster. So like at this point.
I mean, it could be a guy that gets traded again this summer, though, too. I mean, I don't think I would just let him walk. I mean, it's not like they're going to be huge players in free agency. I mean, they're clearly looking to rebuild. I mean, he still serves some, holds some value. I'd hold on to him.
Yeah, apparently other teams are showing interest. We mentioned the Lakers have been linked to him, so there definitely is some other interest there. Really quick, we have a few other Nets-related updates here. Brian Windhorst says that Nick Claxton is being shopped, and the team's looking at other deals that could include picks from the Sixers. And then Woj reported the same thing, that they are still very aggressive and are hoping to make another move before the deadline. So possible that we see another Nets move, especially maybe moving some of those picks for more of a win now piece. So something to watch there. I think that's everything. Any other rumors or anything that we've missed that you guys want to touch on? Oh, there was one from Michael Scotto earlier. Ethan, and we were talking about that earlier. The PJ Washington rumor. Can you kind of update everyone on what that was?
Yeah, I will find the article as I talk, but I think he had reported that they discussed PJ Washington, Kai Jones, and I believe a first-round pick. I don't know if there was any protections attached to that, to the Spurs for Pirtle. Yeah, so that was at least kind of the outline of the trade.
Thoughts on that?
I
Anyone?
feel like that'd be a lot to give up.
I know Pirtle. There's a lot of
two
teams
young
like
guys and a pick for Pirtle.
Yeah, it seems like
Can't-
Pirtle. I mean,
can't
the
say I'd
Raptors, the
be that high on
Bulls.
that
There's been a
one.
lot of teams showing interest in Pirtle. Apparently,
Yeah.
that does seem like a lot. That was my first reaction too, looking at that return. Mark, what do you think of that?
What was the return again?
It was okay. I got it. So it was Pirtle for PJ Washington, Kai Jones, and a quote unquote potential first-round pick.
I mean, I'm definitely high on Pirtle. I think he's a fantastic player, but that is a lot to give up. Although they do really, I think Pirtle would really solidify some things, especially defensively. But I also am just like very much in the camp of I hate the idea of having to trade PJ Washington. I get that he's kind of been squeezed a little bit, but he's such a good young player. Like obviously not quite at the level of Tyrese Halliburton to him getting traded being that wild, but that's one of the guys where you look at him like, yeah, I really don't want to move on from him. But I think that would be a lot if that was what actually went through. I would be kind of surprised by that.
One question I see popping up in the chat here is about Miles Turner. I know that he's been linked to the Raptors, the Bucks. People are wondering if the Nets could make sense. So there's a lot of questions about Miles Turner. I think a lot of people expected Turner to be maybe the biggest name move, either Turner or Sabonis. That was before this Harden stuff popped up. So I'm curious. Clearly now after trading Sabonis and bringing in Tyrese Halliburton, there's been some talk that Turner might stay in Indiana. He's 25 years old, so it's possible he could kind of fit alongside that young core that they're assembling. But do we think Miles Turner gets traded? And what are your thoughts on the whole situation there in Indiana?
No, I mean, I guess we do have enough time to talk about it on the streams with 3 hours left. I mean, with Turner, man, I don't know what to make of it. Just based on everything, like he has been pretty unhappy in Indiana. And I do think, it's been reported obviously that Domas being traded might make him view things a little bit differently. It's still just difficult with how much they have included him in trade talks his entire career, the way that he's constantly been linked to other teams. I mean, I guess it could change things, but at the same time, I'm really interested to see what Indiana does because, okay, do they view this as a full teardown and rebuild, or do they want to just kind of retool for next year? I think that would definitely change my view on what they're doing and how things are looking. I know reports came out about Malcolm Brogdon potentially being moved in the offseason once his contract is available to be moved. It just kind of feels logical for Turner to be involved in that as well. But again, a lot's just going to depend on what the Pacers are actually looking to do. I know they've already surprised us quite a bit by doing what they did. So I wouldn't at all be shocked if Turner still gets moved, even with some of the mentions that he might be happy staying.
One thing I do want to mention, I know Miles Turner is excited about the possibility of playing with Tyrese Halliburton, so I think he would welcome staying in Indiana, even though he has been mentioned in rumors a lot. I think the Sabonis trade, opens things up for him and gives him that increased role that he was looking for. And then I know he's excited about Halliburton and is a big fan of his game. So something interesting there. We'll see if he ends up getting moved. We do have some more details here of that trade. So the full trade, according to, I think, Woj, is Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, 2022 first-round pick, protected 1 through 4 for Derek White. So Matt, we hear those protections. It makes a lot more sense whenever you hear the full details. Mm-hmm. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean it's they're just protecting the crazy upside of it, right? I mean 1 through 4. I mean the chance of it being there, I don't know, if they're too high. It makes sense.
Let's see. Derek White in the first year of rookie extension, $15.2 million, $16.4 million. Basically, he's going to be making $15 million or more next few years. And Boston is $3 million below the tax. So I know there was a lot of questions about, would they move Dennis Schroeder to get under the luxury tax? I think earlier the trade they made, moving Bol and PJ Dozier got them under, so they didn't have to move Schroeder. But thoughts on kind of where the Celtics are at cap-wise and what their outlook looks like, Ethan?
Sorry, I was just doing the headline. I think it's, especially with the earlier trade, I think from my knowledge, the Celtics are going to be under the luxury tax, which was what was important. I'm assuming moving Josh Richardson is going to help that too. It's all set. And then if you think trying to work through what the bench looks like right now, you have, maybe Derek White starts too, and you could do, he probably comes off the bench. You have White, you have Aaron Nesmith probably getting more playing time as of right now. Again, obviously can make more moves. You have Grant Williams coming off the bench, who I've really liked. You have insert some combination of playing Robert Williams or Al Horford as your center. Maybe has freedom, takes in a couple minutes there. And that's kind of most of your bench unit, which is pretty solid. And again, very switchable. The Celtics switch a ton on defense, which is good. I think Derek White, he can play against larger players too. Yeah, it looks really good. Personally, I've always bought in on Romeo Langford. So for me, I'm going to be interested to watch him in San Antonio because I do think there's still a lot to unlock with him. I think he can make strides as a shooter. He's a very good defender. Improved a little bit as a driver, although there's still a lot to want to see there. So I'll be watching him. But yeah, this is the kind of move that I think at least the Celtics fan base has said, like, let's push in and win now. First round picks, whatever, young prospects, whatever. Like let's kind of make a move here and try and contend. And I think with the way this team's been playing so well, this is the right type of move to make. And again, Derek White is really going to help the defense, especially when that starting lineup goes to the bench or is broken up during a game.
And how about the irony too that Brad Stevens is the one to make it happen in the big chair, and he's the one to get the move done instead of we came close. Brad Stevens was the one to get it done, and shout out to him for those contracts over the summer. The Josh Richardson one worked out beautifully. He got himself a point guard and somebody that can play off of Marcus and obviously the Jays. So well done, well executed to maintain that flexibility.
It's interesting, like this, they're so fewer leaks, and again, I'm not trying to speculate too much, under a Brad Stevens run front office versus Danny Ainge. Like there were a couple rumored destinations for Josh Richardson, and we've seen some talks with Dennis Schroeder, but like there's this kind of caught us off guard for the most part, just the fact that this deal was coming together. And I don't know if that would have happened under a Danny Ainge-led front office.
Yeah, hey, Alex, to go back to your last question on that pick and the protection. So I just looked it up. So right now, Boston's pick, I mean, they slotted at number 18. So it's likely going to be a mid-first round pick. The protection's 1 to 4. B if they, took a dive, got into the lottery and shocked the world and won the lottery, being one of the last teams that, in there. So the 1 to 4 protection, it's a long shot.
The Spurs will also have the right to swap first-round picks with Boston in 2028. So I think our initial reaction was, why would the Spurs do this? They only got back Josh Richardson. Now hearing that it's Romeo Langford, a top 4 protected pick in 2022, and then the right to swap picks in 2028, how do we feel about this return for the Spurs? We talked about this from the Celtics side a lot, but do we like this for the Spurs, actually, after hearing all the details?
It's definitely a lot stronger than the first thing we saw. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The deal's definitely gotten a lot better since then. I mean, honestly, for Derek White, I think it's a fair compensation. Obviously, Derek White is going to help Boston a lot, like we covered throughout. But for San Antonio to get a first-round pick, you get potentially a future first-round pick that could be high down the road in 2028. I mean, Murray and White, that backcourt's a lot of fun. And now DeJounte Murray gets even more usage, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch in San Antonio. But for the Spurs side of things, I think it's a fair compensation now when looking at everything put together.
Yeah, they had to make a couple tough choices with their guard rotation. And, obviously Derek White's very good, and that's time will tell if that was the right choice to make. But you get another young, at least for me, interesting player in Langford. The first-round pick is always nice. Josh Richardson is either flippable or at least, a decent rotation player to have. So it's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's telling with what their approach is here. I mean, they're looking the long term. I mean, I think with the way I'm looking at it is that they're probably seeing this core unit not being able to get it done. They need to get some young assets. I know they're really high on Primo, and so now they're looking, okay, where's our window to strike, and it's probably not for a few years. And so I mean, and with pick swaps, I mean, it sounds like it's nothing that's 2028. To me, pick swaps are scary if you're giving them up, right? Because you don't know where your organization is going to be at. That could end up being a really high pick potentially.
A long time from now, yeah. That was surprising to me too. Seeing that helps the offer for sure, or the deal there for San Antonio. Again, as I mentioned, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. We do have one question here, Matt. They said, so the Spurs have 3 first-round picks this year. Is that correct?
I believe so. So they've got, right now, they'd be set at 6. Boston's 18. I don't know what the third one is. I think it's just 2. I might be missing one.
Okay.
But I mean, they've got their own pick, which is probably going to be a high lottery pick. That's the interesting one, right? I mean, you got a young guy like Primo that they're invested in. Add another high lottery pick. I mean, they got some potential of rebuilding this thing.
One player we haven't talked much about, I think we were starting to talk about him earlier, and then the trade happened. But Jeremy Grant, again, Portland's been a team that's been talked about a lot. Detroit's asking for 2 firsts or a young player. Oh, did they have Toronto's pick? Someone just asked if they got Toronto's pick too. Is that may have been from
the Dragic deal, maybe?
Yeah.
Or was that the DeRozan deal?
No, it was the Dragic deal today. I think they got
it. Okay, so
maybe that just
happened
today,
too.
so it's not up to
So they've acquired 2 today. So there you go. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate that. So yeah, Jeremy Grant. I mean, we've heard Washington, we've heard Sacramento, we've heard Portland. I think the Lakers and Nets talked about him at one point, but that seemed more unrealistic, I think, just based on the assets. Thoughts on Grant and the possible destinations there? As I mentioned before, Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype thinks he seems like like Portland is the team that may land him. He was saying that if he had to bet, he thinks he's going to end up a Blazer. Thoughts on Grant? And I think he's probably one of the hardest players to gauge as far as his value and the market for him. He apparently wants to be a number 1 or number 2 option wherever he goes. He wants an extension that's going to pay him, $25 to $28 million annually. Scotto said that scared a number of executives off from Grant. Thoughts on, the situation there and which teams make sense for him?
I can offer the Captain Obvious response. The Pistons went out and just got Marvin Bagley. They play basically the same position. So maybe they are advancing in some way of finding a place for him to land. But you said it, man. I mean, if he wants to be the number one guy and make a bunch of money, which good for him, he should. But contenders, it's going to be tough to cobble together a package to make that work. So the options are limited.
I think he needs to figure out what he wants. Do you want to be a top option? Do you want the crazy extension that's paying you $28 million a year? Do you want to play on a winning team? I think it's hard to check all those boxes. That's going to be very difficult. So it really depends on what he wants. And then what teams are willing to trade for him. I know Chicago was also mentioned as a possibility. I think Pistons fans are holding out hope that they might be able to get Patrick Williams. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen, but that's been something that Pistons fans are pushing for. Any other thoughts on Grant? Because he's one of the more notable names that is coming up as a possible trade candidate today. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, I think honestly with Jeremy Grant, the one thing I keep coming back to, like Scotto mentioned last night on the Spaces, Alex, is Portland, just because that fit. You have to wonder exactly what they're doing. They're selling off all these assets, but at the same time, you're hearing all this smoke around Grant potentially going to Portland and being that kind of secondary option to Damian Lillard. And the one package I keep coming back to as a hypothetical is something like the first-round pick they just got from the Pelicans, plus in this year a little for Jeremy Grant. I'll open up to anyone else. Does that kind of package make sense for both sides there?
Mark, what do you think?
Can you repeat the package?
Yeah, Nasir Little and the Pelicans' first-round pick for Grant.
I mean, I think it's tough. I don't think I would do it personally. I guess if you're looking at doing this all in for next year, maybe you look into it. But I mean, Nasir was really starting to come into his own as a starter. I know just based on reporting, they've been super into him as a player moving forward. And just factoring in what the cost would be too for Jeremy, I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, like the whole role thing is what makes it odd too. And I feel like that probably has turned off some teams to Miles Turner as well, because he had mentioned, like a lot had come out in the Athletic reporting that he wanted to have a bigger role than he has in Indiana. And I mean, both for him and Jeremy, they're fantastic players, but I just don't quite know if that is something that's going to factor into, being on a title contending team. So, I mean, maybe the Blazers look into doing it and just figure it out later. But if that is their ultimate return after what they've done the last couple of days, I would be a little bit questioning where they're going with this.
I know one aspect of it is that Damian Lillard has been a big fan of Grant's for a while and has been, friends with him. They've been close. So people are wondering if that could be part of this. You just made all these other trades and looking like you're going to rebuild. And I know a lot of their moves were about cap flexibility and bringing in, pieces so they could build for the future. And their take has been, we have flexibility to now go out and sign players and put pieces around Dame. But it's possible that in addition to the on-court benefits, they're thinking that maybe Grant could keep Dame happy, for a few more years. So I don't know. I think I see what you're saying as far as his role. And then again, that the contract's big too, $28 million a year. Oh wait, go ahead, Evan. What do we got?
Two pieces of news.
Torrey Craig is back in Phoenix. The Suns just they got him back, and they sent Jalen Smith in the future second-round pick. That's a great deal for Phoenix. I mean,
we just talked about that last night.
Makes so much sense for Phoenix. I love the deal. Jalen Smith, they weren't going to be able to re-sign because they declined his third-year team option as a lottery pick. So maybe Indiana gets a flyer on him, but sending out a future second-round pick to really fortify your bench even more, I love for Phoenix.
And second piece of advice too, or piece of news too, is that James Harden opted into his player option already for next year.
Oh, wow.
47 million, 47.3.
I want to add on too, just going off of Evan with the Pacers. I feel like that maybe makes things a little bit more likely that Miles gets traded.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It feels like it, that especially too, they have Goga Bitadze there already. Isaiah Jackson has been popping off, and I think he's going to be returning back from injury soon. I don't know, man. This feels a lot more like they're going full in for a rebuild. So I definitely see that being more possible.
Now, I like this for Indiana, bringing in Jalen Smith. I feel like if you're a team like Indiana, you should go after these buy low young players like Jalen Smith, or even like we talked about earlier, Marvin Bagley for Detroit, or even what the Magic did, like Bol, some of these young pieces. If you're in a situation like Indiana or Detroit, Orlando, you might as well try to buy low on one of these young guys and see if a change of scenery can really unlock them. Jalen Smith, I know, they turned down his third-year option, but he's shown flashes this year since he got a chance to play a bit more with all the COVID stuff going on. So maybe they could find a potential steal in Smith if he can actually, play better there. Sometimes when a player has a change of scenery like that, it kind of unlocks their game and they can, take their game to the next level. So I like this for Indiana. And then for the Suns, this makes a ton of sense. I mean, they were already, one of the favorites to win it all this year. And then being able to get someone like Torrey Craig who helps them right now and who's familiar with their system and all their players, it just makes a lot of sense. Evan, I'm curious, what kind of impact did Craig have in Phoenix? And I know I was talking to some Sun fans the other day, and they were saying, they were hoping to keep him over the offseason, but obviously Indiana paid up. But what kind of impact do you think this has on the Suns' championship hopes this year? And what do you like about Craig's game?
Yeah, Torrey Craig really surprised me last year. I know he flashed a little bit in Denver. He was an older prospect because he went overseas, but the way that he played in the Sun system was great. He can play small ball 5. He could play 3 and 4 at times. He shut down Paul George in that really big clinching game for the Clippers in the Western Conference semifinals. He's a very versatile defender. He can shoot when asked upon. He's not that consistent. I know maybe that Sun stretch kind of a mirage there. Probably his percentage is more so like in 34-35% instead. But honestly, he fits Monty Williams' system. He's a versatile defender. He's a great fit in the locker. I know all the guys in Phoenix absolutely love Torrey Craig. They didn't want him to leave in the first place. So now he's under team control through the end of next season as well. So I think for the Suns and Torrey Craig, this has been something in the works for a while. And I love for Phoenix because now you replace Abdul Nader in the rotation with Torrey Craig, and now Craig can play small ball 5 too if need be.
One thing I wanted to mention, this is on the same topic because we're talking about the Pacers and how it seems like they're rebuilding, trading off veterans. One thing that Mike Scotto mentioned last night on our Twitter Spaces is that he's hearing from rival executives that the Pacers will likely move Malcolm Brogdon this offseason. He signed an extension in October, so they couldn't trade him for 6 months. But this offseason, he will be eligible to be traded. I'd assume they'd have quite a few suitors for Brogdon. And the main reason would be they want to hand the keys over to Halliburton and get some kind of, young players and picks back for Brogdon. So, can't be traded today because of the extension, but could be a name we're talking about in the offseason as a possible trade candidate. Thoughts on Brogdon's potential availability and, any teams that make sense or what you guys think of that situation?
It's really interesting with him just because, he's on a long-term deal now, but the injuries really just continue to be a problem for him. And you can't just squint and say, well, you can factor him in. He's going to be a shooter immediately. His shot has really been odd in Indiana. He had his first year there. I think he shot 32 or 33%. Part of that was doing a lot more off the dribble. Then he went back and shot around 39% last year. And he's really struggled this year. He's never really quite had that lift. And he's mostly been a set shooter for his career too. Has never quite gotten it off the dribble at a high level in Indiana just consistently. But I do still think like if he's factored into a more tamped down role playing off the ball, and also too, that's another part of the equation because part of the reason he was excited about Indiana was to be a lead ball handler and to not just be strictly off the ball. So ideally he's in like a role somewhat in between what he was doing in Milwaukee and what he's doing now in Indiana. Like he's one of the best drivers in basketball and actually figured out how to finish off drives earlier this year, which is obviously very key. But I think it's just going to be a lot about how much is the team willing to take on somebody with that much salary that does have notable injury concerns.
Question for you, Evan. I think a lot of Suns fans were hoping for a move like this, but they're also looking at Eric Gordon. I think he's the guy at the top of everyone's wish list. What are your thoughts? Do you think the fact that they just traded a second-round pick in Smith for Craig, does that make a Gordon deal less likely? I know the Rockets have been wanting a first-round pick for Gordon, but there were some thoughts that maybe they budge off that asking price. What are your thoughts on how this impacts the possible Eric Gordon deal?
Yeah, I believe I'm double checking right now as I'm talking to make sure, but I believe the Suns still have the salaries to make it work for an Eric Gordon trade if need be. They have Dario Saric's salary. They also have, instead of Jalen Smith, they could throw Landry Shamet in the deal as well. His poison pill contract he's under right now is $3.7 million in salary. And they could probably trade one of their expirings as well, and Abdul Nader, Frank Kaminsky, or Elfrid Payton to get back Eric Gordon. And it looks like here it does still work. So, yeah, they can still make it happen for Eric Gordon if need be. But I do wonder at this point, this might be their big move. Maybe they go into the buyout market and try to get someone else. But they have all 15 roster spots currently open. They still have the things to make it work for Eric Gordon. But this might be the Suns' big move today, so to say.
Hey, Mark, question here from Paul Weber. TJ Warren, I mean, what's up with him? The injury, he's been out for a while. I think some fans are no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I can just
There's really
tell
no
you straight
timeline,
up,
right?
Rick Carlisle's only updates are weeks, not months, on when he'll be back, and he's been saying that since media day. So really no updates. Like I know he's been back and working more on court, and it's not just one-on-one anymore. Like he's been able to do some more contact stuff, but I am not sure that we'll even see him this season, which just kind of throws things up in the air more for what happens with his contract, because he's on an expiring right now. I have no idea what to make of everything with him. I'm just hopeful he's able to get back and actually play basketball, and I do hope he's able to come back this year. But just based on how everything's gone, it seems pretty unlikely.
He's on my IR spot in our fantasy league, so please tell him to come back as soon as possible. Let's see. Is there any other moves that we've missed? I think we have everything as far as rumors and trades that have happened. I know we kind of brushed up or touched on earlier trades that happened earlier in the day. Is there anything else that happened that you guys want to break down from earlier before we kind of wait for some more trades to happen? We have 1 hour left till the deadline, so I'm sure a lot's going to happen here the next hour. But anything else that happened earlier that you guys want to touch on?
I mean, just as a whole, real quick, I just want to say, just spanning from the LeVert trade when it started off to Sabonis and McCollum and now James Harden today. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but this has to be at the most fireworks-filled deadline that we've seen in at least a couple years. This has been a lot of fun so far. Now we're about to see maybe an Eric Gordon trade happen as well for the next hour or so. This has already been fireworks-filled. It's been awesome.
Yeah, you've had some depth pieces, but then also big names, as you mentioned: Sabonis, Harden, Simmons, LeVert, McCollum. There's been so many big names moved, and we still. I mean, I think a lot of people are waiting to see is Miles Turner, Jeremy Grant, Eric Gordon, who's next from this group that could be on the move. Earlier today, I was surprised to see a Kristaps Porzingis rumor that Toronto was having conversations about Porzingis. That kind of popped up out of nowhere. One thing that Mike Scotto reported on my podcast is that the Raptors are looking for a center. They've been talking to everyone. He mentioned Miles Turner, Robert Williams, Nicholas Claxton, Yusuf Nurkic, now Porzingis. It sounds like, if you're tall, then the Raptors have probably called and inquired about you. So it'll be interesting to see if something happens there. If Toronto makes some kind of move. Let's see. We have a few questions coming in. As I mentioned earlier, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to be here the next 2 hours answering any questions that pop up. We actually have, let's see, any chance the Bucks are still in on Schroeder? I want to say the report that came out was that DiVincenzo was who they were offering for Schroeder. So I'm not sure if that's still a possibility. Maybe they still are showing interest, but they'd have to have some kind of different offer than what was reported. What do we think about, Schroeder's availability and the Bucks being a possible landing spot?
I think the DiVincenzo 4-team trade really changes it, because anytime, at least that I had read, that there was a report about Schroeder being linked to the Bucks, DiVincenzo was involved. So that definitely seems like it changes a lot. I don't know if the Bucks would give up a guy like Pat Connaughton or someone else like that in a similar trade. Probably not. I haven't seen a guy like Connaughton's name out there, so it definitely changes, especially what the Bucks are trying to do now that they've already made a type of deal like that, and they added a depth big in Serge Ibaka, and they took them some assets to go get that. I think it definitely changes a little bit. I also want to ask, this is a little side tangent, but Mark, I'm really interested in what you think the likelihood is that specifically Bitadze or Jalen Smith kind of do find that second win in this rebuild with the Pacers. I was a huge Bitadze fan back in the 2019 draft, and that hasn't exactly worked out. But I was just wondering, as someone who knows the team so well, aside from Isaiah Jackson obviously showing flashes, do you think either of those two kind of catches on now that there's kind of more of a youth movement, or at least it looks like?
Yeah, well, even with him getting more playing time recently, Goga has just been totally out of his depth, and he has really struggled, especially defensively. I think he's found his footing a little bit offensively, but I kind of am not really sure what to make about his future with Indiana, to be completely honest. As for Jalen, I know Evan covers the team more closely than I do, but I've been pretty impressed with Jalen this year compared to where he was at last year. He's still very raw and has a lot to figure out defensively, but as long as he gets to a place where he's able to take his threes a little bit more comfortably, that opens up a lot for him offensively. His feel needs to come along still too, but He's at least shown enough this year where I can be like, okay, I can envision putting that guy on an NBA court. With Goga, it's been a ride with that, and I honestly would not be surprised if he ends up, somewhere in the offseason or around draft day.
Yeah, with Jalen Smith, he didn't look so great in summer league, but once he actually got rotation minutes this year with Ayton and McGee and health and safety protocols, he actually showed very well. I think he averaged like 14 points and 12 rebounds over a 5-game stretch. Yeah. He could be a stabilizing guy, more consistent than a Goga Batadze at Indiana. So maybe he does stay around long term as a backup. But with Jalen Smith's contract being expiring, it's going to be kind of tough if he does play well in Indiana. Maybe some team offers him something Indiana can't match. So it's just a unique thing with Jalen Smith's contract now with it being declined. But I like it for Indiana. I think it's a nice flyer. You get a former top 10 pick and a second-round pick for Torrey Craig. I think Indiana did really good here.
For sure. As other rumors pop up, we will mention them. Here's a question that's not really trade related, but Tim asked, speaking of fantasy, are there any players that aren't rostered that will have a big uptick and should get picked up? That's an interesting one.
I have one.
Yeah.
Pick up Zach Collins. That's part of the reason why they moved Thad Young. I mean, they were going to move Thad Young pretty much regardless, but part of the reason for moving Drew Eubanks was to make the spot more clear for Zach Collins. He's played really well the last couple of games that he's been up after rehabbing in the G League, and it looks like he's going to play like a decent amount, especially if you play in a deeper league. I mean, I'm not like a fantasy guru or anything, but I'm probably going to pick up Zach Collins today, to be honest. I play in a 12-person keeper league, so definitely worth looking into because he's somebody who, I mean, they use their bigs as trigger men quite a bit, operating from the elbows and from the post and from the perimeter to move the ball. So he's able to rack up assists, points, rebounds, and he's definitely a shot blocker as well. Gets his hands all over the place. So he's good at getting fantasy points, and he's been pretty solid on court as well.
That's a good one. We're in a 14-team league. Our basketball news staff have a 14-team league, and he is available. So, oh, wow, Ethan. Was that you that just did that?
No, what happened?
Literally, someone just picked up Zach Collins.
Oh, that's hilarious, man.
Hold on. Oh, I think it must have been Ash, the Mambas.
Funny, Brian.
That's hilarious. So I think it says it's the Mambas. I think that is. Oh, it's
Brian.
Brian,
Just
our
said
producer.
it.
Wow, our producer took
Damn.
the advice and sniped it. Wow, that's amazing. Well, there you go. That's already being put to good use. So yeah, go listen to Mark and add Zach Collins, just like our producer Brian. I love it. That's great timing. All right, let's see. Larry Golden asks, would you be worried if you were the Bulls? Question. I mean, I'm guessing other moves happening. You know, we've heard the Bulls linked to a number of players like Jeremy Grant, Jakob Poeltl, but it sounded like they didn't have the assets to kind of make one of those deals happen. Thoughts on the Bulls here and what they're doing today?
I think it, again, not to kind of tee up Mark's articles, I think it kind of goes back to what he wrote, I think a couple of weeks ago, about what the Bulls should do at this deadline, that you're kind of not at a franchise altering crossroads, but do you try and go all in for a championship because the East is relatively wide open, or do you just kind of hold your chips and wait for guys to get healthy? I personally wouldn't be worried. I think they're in a situation where injuries have kind of made things tough, but they clearly do have a lot of depth, particularly at guard, that you don't need to go anywhere. Maybe you address bench help. Obviously, the Jeremy Grant trade, I think, was floated around out there over the last couple of weeks, but it doesn't sound like that's going anywhere. I don't think missing out on Jeremy Grant is a major loss, especially if it means you keep Patrick Williams and still buy in on him, because there's a lot to like with Patrick Williams. Yeah, I don't know if I'm worried. Obviously, you're relatively disappointed whenever your team you think has a chance to kind of set yourself apart with a trade deadline move and it doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be overly concerned if something doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, just to go off of Ethan, I mean, they're just in a weird spot, man. Like, I think given how other teams have operated, it would be very difficult to just go in and be like, yeah, we're not going to go in and make any moves now. But like, okay, what if you move Patrick Williams to get Jeremy Grant? What is that doing for you necessarily? Like, I don't think that would put me more comfortable with the Bulls above any of the teams ahead of them right now. I also think it's like not that simple either. Like, yes, they've lost a lot of games recently, but they've been missing Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso. The biggest parts of their defense and setting the tone for what they do. On a positive note, like Nikola Vucevic has really found his stride lately offensively. His shot's been better from deep. He's been just more consistent on the interior and actually hitting his shots on the inside as well. I honestly think like once Ball and Caruso come back, they could be in for a pretty good run to close out the year. Which honestly, it's good to get everything going the last month, and then going to playoffs kind of hot. But I'd be more interested to see them just do a smaller move on the margins, like bringing somebody who can be a more consistent 7th or 8th man. I think one of the better things that's happened for the Bulls too is with Kobe White popping the way he has, Io popping the way he has. I mean, I don't love just talking about in terms of asset play, but they have a lot more value on the roster than I think people realize going into the year, especially with how some of these younger guys have popped and played. That makes things interesting in the offseason and where maybe other things open up. Just given how things are going at the deadline right now, I don't necessarily see any reason to go, hog wild before 3:00.
Real quick, as I mentioned, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. We will make sure to get to them. I also want to thank our 2 sponsors, Prize Picks and Ticket Smarter. We appreciate them sponsoring us. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play fantasy basketball. It's daily fantasy. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10x on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. They have a ton of stats to choose from: points, rebounds, assists, threes, fantasy points. They also have mixed sport entries, so you can take the over on an NBA player and under on an NFL player. They have every sport you can think of, including the NBA, NFL, college basketball, MLB, soccer, MMA, college football, and more. All of our viewers that deposit and use our promo code NEWS will receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Be sure to use that promo code NEWS, and then you can play today. Thanks, Prize Picks. Go get that instant deposit match by using the promo code NEWS. We also want to thank Ticket Smarter. They help customers from all walks of life experience the excitement of live events. Buying with Ticket Smarter is quick and easy, and the tickets are 100% guaranteed. Find tickets to more than 125,000 concerts, sports, and theater events. If you want tickets for the hottest live events, be sure to check out Ticket Smarter. Also, we have an announcement to make. We're pretty excited to announce that Sports News Corp, the parent company of basketballnews.com, will be launching footballnews.com and golfnews.com this year. We're also accepting investments through Seed Invest. So if you're interested in joining our team, check out the pinned tweet on our Twitter page, and you can get more information on Seed Invest. So I had to go through that, make some announcements real quick. But back to answering some questions. Let's see. We've had a lot of questions about the Lakers.
I do actually have a quick thing.
Go ahead.
Sarah K. Spencer from Atlanta Journal-Constitution just reported that it's looking like Atlanta's not going to make any moves prior to the deadline, going to stand pat. So just for what it's worth.
We also have Ramona Shelburne reporting that the Lakers are not interested in trading a 2027 first-round pick in any deals. So we had heard that they were shopping that first-rounder and Kendrick Nunn, Taylor Horton-Tucker. They were, making calls about those 3. If they're not willing to move that first-rounder, I'd imagine it's going to be pretty hard for them to make any kind of deal unless, they can find a minor trade involving Taylor Horton-Tucker. But interesting there. So we'll see what the Lakers do today. Again, I was on one of the spaces last night with a lot of Laker fans, and they were talking about Russell Westbrook trades and big splashy moves. I don't think we're going to see anything like that. If I had to guess, we're going to see just buyout moves for the Lakers. They don't really have the assets to pull off any kind of huge trade. That contract for Russell Westbrook is, really, really tough. So if I had to guess, keep an eye on them in the buyout market. Players always want to go play in Los Angeles, play on national stage and potentially help their stock in free agency, play with LeBron. So they're more of a buyout team, in my opinion, especially if they're not willing to move that first rounder. Let's see. Brian, you just joined us here. We have to get your thoughts on some of the crazy moves that happened earlier. What are your thoughts on this James Harden, Ben Simmons deal and some of the other moves you've seen today?
So what I was kind of rooting for was that this fell through because it'd be very entertaining, but obviously that did not happen. I could see a world where this works out for both teams. I don't know what that necessarily would entail for Philadelphia, but for Brooklyn, the best case scenario is that they can get to the finals. I don't know what's going to happen with the vaccine mandate, so Kyrie might still not be able to play home games because Eric Adams, the mayor of the city that I'm currently in, is not budging on this vaccine thing, which is good. He shouldn't. And as it pertains to, Ben Simmons fitting there, I think they're going to be able to make it work from a basketball standpoint. I think they could have gotten a little bit more, but I'm going to digress there. I could also see a world where Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, and Kevin Durant just, that whole dynamic just doesn't really work out from a personality standpoint. And I super think that might be the case with James Harden and Joel Embiid, as we talked about on Monday, because I could see a world where them dudes just straight up don't like each other, and then that goes south. James Harden has done a lot of sandbagging these last couple of years and then just getting what he wanted at the end, which is a trade. And now we're seeing that again this year happen. He basically got himself out of the Houston situation and into Brooklyn last year, and now he's doing it again with Philadelphia. So we'll see if they make it work. I think Joel Embiid is going to be obviously motivated to do so, as is James Harden. And I think that could potentially make Philly a dangerous team. I like that they kept Maxey. I like that they kept Thibault. I think those are two key things for me. But in terms of that, now it's all about, in this last, 40 minutes or so, are the Heat going to do anything? Are the Bucks going to do anything else to sort of bolster their chances and try to, not allow the Nets or Sixers to overtake them in the power rankings in the East per se?
One thing that I heard from two different people actually in the last week or two is that they said that Joel Embiid doesn't plan to play super long. Like, he's not going to be a LeBron that's playing, in his mid 30s. They think that he's probably going to be someone that tries to walk away in his early 30s. So I think that's something to keep in mind too, where you would heard rumors that, the Sixers could have had that Kings package with Tyrese Halliburton and some younger players, but if you're Daryl Morey, not only did you want a top guy like James Harden, but I think the window might be smaller than people realize. And if he knows that, and Embiid's made that clear to people, he's 27 right now. So
He'll be 28 this year.
28 this year. So if they're thinking we have, a 4-year window to go, maximize his chance of winning a championship, obviously he's playing an MVP level right now. We don't know how long that's going to continue either. So I maybe that's another reason why they went with more of a win now type move in Harden, even though there are risks associated with it. If it allows them to compete for a championship this year, next year, maybe that's something that is factored in here as well.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like Joel Embiid to me is an MVP candidate, and also he is somebody who you don't know how many more of these Joel Embiid type of seasons you're going to get from a health standpoint, from him being just excellent again this year, like he was last year, except last year he did get hurt. Like, you have to strike now, and this is why I was saying Daryl Morey has to do something, because you can't just waste this Joel Embiid season with Ben Simmons just sitting out there. So it's good that they did something. Now it's just a matter of making this fit with him and James Harden. James Harden, who's somebody, as we talked about on Monday, is he on a decline? And if he is, could Joel Embiid sort of save him from that?
Sorry to interrupt. Montrezl Harrell to Charlotte per Shams.
So that was one of the destinations talked about as a possibility for Miles Turner. I think Charlotte everyone's kind of circling Charlotte as a possible destination there. So interesting. Maybe Turner isn't getting moved, so they pivoted to Montrezl Harrell. Big difference. But thoughts on Montrezl Harrell to the Hornets and how he fits there?
Are they moving PJ Washington?
We have not heard what the return is.
Because I feel like now they could. Now there's an avenue where they could a little bit easier.
We do have some little details here. We'll get back to Montrezl Harrell in a second, but Keith Smith says that Boston plans to take Derek White into their Evan Fournier traded player exception. So now that means they also created an $11.2 million traded player exception for Josh Richardson. So throw that little nugget in there. But they are sending Ish Smith and Vernon Carey to Washington for Montrezl Harrell. So thoughts on that deal? I think the Wizards are one team that everyone was talking about. They had Dinwiddie, Harrell, Thomas Bryant. There was plenty of different players that they were making available. So not a huge surprise to see them finally make a trade. Thoughts on that return? Mark, I saw you make a face. What do you think?
That was, I didn't really think they were going to get a ton for Trez, but that's kind of nothing. Not to be disrespectful to those guys, but Ish Smith is going to be like the third guard on this team. Vernon Carey's an okay prospect, but that's not really much at all in terms of return.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Harrell was like an impact player for them. I think that's a very solid move for Charlotte, at least to have a second big who's going to bring a lot of energy off the bench, get rebounds, attack inside, so on. But yeah, I totally agree with Mark that Vernon Carey is great, but he's not really moving neither of these players are really moving the needle in either direction. And like the Wizards have been kind of at a crossroads, especially with the Beal injury, where it's like, okay, what are you really trying to do with this team? We all, I think, collectively said on Monday that they're just in a really weird situation. And this doesn't change that at all for me.
So do we think this leads to a PJ Washington trade? Because as you mentioned, Brian, earlier we talked about it. It kind of didn't make sense why we're hearing PJ Washington, popping up. Now just open the door. Oh, we actually, real quick, have another trade. Sham says Aaron Holiday from Washington to Phoenix. So we'll see what the Suns are sending out. But Aaron Holiday to Phoenix. Thoughts on that, guys?
I know for sure. This is based off what I've known from covering the Suns the last couple of years. They loved Aaron Holiday in the pre-draft process a couple of years ago. When James Jones was still there, they were very high on him. They hoped that he fell to the second round with their first pick. I think it was 32 overall when he was in that draft class. They brought him for, I believe, 2 workouts and another private one as well. So this could just be getting a guy into your system that they like a little bit. But it is kind of curious to me exactly what the Suns will be sending out in this situation. Maybe it's like a expiring salary, like Elfrid Payton. That might make the most sense. He's probably a more stable option than an Elfrid Payton right now. So it's an intriguing roll of the dice, I would say, for the Suns. Aaron Holiday is an interesting fit.
I love it too because, I mean, he's really struggled to find his way in the league. I do think he's dealt a lot with inconsistency. Playing for multiple different coaches has definitely hurt him too. I really like the idea of him getting to play under Chris Paul. I think like sometimes that can be dragged out a little bit far for me in terms of, leadership and whatnot. But the idea of getting to play under an established point guard and one of the best players in league history and getting to learn from him, I think could be really good. I'm just interested to see how it goes. I'm hoping it works out. Like at his best, he can really help a rotation, probably more as a backup guard now. But I like that move a lot.
The Wizards are also getting a second-round pick in that Montrezl Harrell deal. So Ish Smith, Vernon Carey, and a second-round pick. At least it's something else. But we will see. I don't see any return yet for the Aaron Holiday trade. So we'll see what that looks like. Whenever we have that kind of update, we'll throw that. We'll mention that too. But anyone else have thoughts on either of these trades that just happened? Harrell or Holiday?
I'm curious to see where Vernon Carey fits because he's still a project, and they still right now have Daniel Gafford and Thomas Bryant on their roster, if I'm not mistaken. So, I wonder if they're going to try to like move somebody to create reps for him, but otherwise, I don't know.
The crazy thing is he is 20 years old. I mean, he turns 21 later this month, but he's still super young too. I mean, let's see. People reacting in the chat. As I mentioned earlier, if you guys have any kind of questions or you guys have topics you want us to discuss, feel free to throw those in the chat. We're going to be here for the next hour and a half breaking down everything. So as trades happen, you won't miss any of them, and we'll be breaking down any kind of rumors that pop up too. So, Evan, we had talked about, with the Suns making the Torrey Craig move, what this meant for their pursuit of Eric Gordon. Now Holiday comes in. How you feeling about the Eric Gordon pursuit? Does it seem like that's not going to happen, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, honestly, they would still have the necessary salaries to make it work because I imagine they're probably flipping out one of their expiring, so they could technically still make it happen if they want to. But I think they're probably done now. I'm just guessing on that, no intel base, but I think they're probably done now. You replace Elfrid Payton in the rotation with Aaron Holiday. I think it's a nice little upside play there for the Suns. So you kind of bank on Aaron Holiday developing more with Chris Paul, like Mark said. So I like the idea that, like I mentioned, the Suns have loved Aaron Holiday since the draft. So I think it's an upgrade over what they had in Elfrid Payton. So we'll have to see if they maybe do things in the buyout market. But just a guess, I imagine they're probably done here unless they make a big all-in move for Eric Gordon next 30 minutes.
Let's see. So the Hornets will get Montrezl Harrell's early bird rights. He's in the final year of his contract. I'm curious to see if Washington makes any other moves because we did hear Spencer Dinwiddie, Thomas Bryant. There's a number of players there that are available. The other team that we haven't talked a lot about today is the Sacramento Kings. After the Sabonis trade, people were thinking that we would see Rashawn Holmes move potentially. Well, I guess we did see the Marvin Bagley trade earlier, but I'm wondering if there's a Rashawn Holmes trade that could potentially be coming. It's interesting to see that if there's any other players there that get moved, because I feel like Sacramento was having tons of conversations in the last few weeks. Any other teams or situations that you guys are keeping an eye on that, Eric Gordon was one we just talked about. He's a notable name to watch. PJ Washington as well. Any other players that you guys are monitoring that you want to see some updates on?
This is kind of niche, but I have been really interested in a lot of those like veteran bigs on rebuilding teams that can help out contenders. Daniel Tice on the Rockets was one, Mike Muscala on the Thunder, Robin Lopez on the Magic. I think those are guys who should be pretty easily gettable for a lot of contenders, and there are a lot of teams that could use like a third big And that could, like the Raptors, for example, even just grab a big for center depth, or the Celtics, the Bucks, although they just got Serge Ibaka. I just am really interested to see, because there are so many of these types of players out there that seem acquirable. I'd like to see where they end up.
I think one that we've talked about on other, previews on Monday was Kenrich Williams in OKC. I think a lot of teams were calling about him, and he seems like someone that a lot of people like. So I'm curious if he could get moved. Some other questions popping in here. Oh, Earl says he found out about the James Harden trade through our ticker. So appreciate you watching, Earl. Shout out. I appreciate the kind words too, saying he loves the website and the app. So thanks so much. Everyone, make sure you guys download the Basketball News app. Tons of articles every day. We're pumping out exclusive articles. We have 11 podcasts that are part of our network. We have live streams like this, videos. So make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube and download our app. There's tons of great content on there, and we appreciate all the hard work our writers have been putting in. Paul Weber asked if there's any kind of market for John Wall. Now, I don't think he's willing to accept a buyout. He wants every single penny from the Rockets. So I don't think we're going to see Wall become available. Now, there were some rumors that the Rockets were open to trading Wall for Russell Westbrook and swapping those contracts again. There really hasn't been any talk about a Westbrook deal. I think maybe it was Woj earlier today said that the Lakers haven't had any conversations on Westbrook. So if that move is not there, then I'd have a hard time believing that Wall gets traded, because that seems like the only real avenue for the Rockets to move him and get something in return. So I don't think that Wall is going to get moved. And it's kind of crazy seeing a guy make that much money just to kind of not play. And that whole situation is very strange to me. The fact that they basically, because he didn't want to take on a complimentary role and they didn't really want him starting, they wanted Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., running the offense, that they just told him, okay, well, just don't play this year, go sit out. That the whole way that situation was handled was kind of strange to me, but I think we're going to see Wall stay in Houston, keep collecting checks. So he's getting paid to do nothing and basically just work out on his own. So he's kind of living the life right now, but I'm sure he would like to see, be on a contending team or a playoff team, but I don't think he's going anywhere. Here's a good question. Give me your wildest trade proposal. Doesn't even have to happen, but what's a trade you would want to see? Anyone have a crazy trade idea to throw out there?
Yes, I would like to see. This is not going to happen, right? This is part of the whole ordeal now. But now that the Heat have draft picks they can use with the KZ Okpala trade yesterday, where they were able to unlock a couple things, I would like to see them package a couple of draft picks, and it would probably have to be Duncan Robinson and Markieff Morris and Omer Yurtseven and Tyler Hero, and potentially Max Strus also to get like Donovan Mitchell or somebody like that.
Whoa.
Because I don't think Donovan Mitchell's going to be in Utah for that much longer. I honestly don't. Like the way that is trending, the way that's been going there, his alleged relationship or lack thereof with Rudy Gobert, I feel like he's somebody that if the Heat were to go whale hunting, that they would do something like that. I would like to see them get real serious and look at what just happened with Philadelphia and Brooklyn and try to have a big swing. But I don't think they're gonna do that. If they do, it'll probably be in the summer, not now.
You bring up an interesting point, though. Like Brian Windhurst of ESPN said that if this was any other team, the Nets, the Suns, the Knicks, that, if you had two all-stars that were beefing with each other, that, it would be a top story. People be talking about in First Take, things like that. But because it's in Utah, no one's talking about it. And these two guys, he said that there's, passive aggressiveness and they're butting heads again. So it is something interesting to keep an eye on. I don't think we see anything today, but that is a nice, I'd trade idea to keep an eye on. Earl said that D Wade would lose his guy to Riley. That would be an interesting.
Or Earl, he would do him a solid. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's all about how you think about it's about perspective here. Anyone else have a crazy trade idea?
Yeah, here's one that I've thought about for the last 24 hours that I honestly think makes sense for both sides because they're both in a desperate situation. And Russell Westbrook, you trade him to the Knicks, okay? You send back Evan Fournier, Kemba Walker, and then Alec Burks, like some of those salaries. So the Lakers get low usage role players, shooters around LeBron and AD. You get off the Westbrook contract. Obviously, the Fournier contract's not great, but that's kind of the price you pay to get off Westbrook. So Westbrook goes to New York. He gets to play with RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, see what happens there. But it kind of feels like a a swap of things that either team really doesn't want to have anymore.
Interesting. That feels kind of like a lose-lose trade.
Yes.
But I get it. I get what you're saying. Mark, you have any crazy trade ideas?
Man, crazy. I don't really have anything crazy to go off of.
Ideal trade, something you would like to see happen.
I mean, it's not going to happen now, but actually, it could. Depending on what they view with Montrezl Harrell, but now that Mason Plumlee wouldn't be the only big on the roster if the Pacers traded Miles Turner for PJ Washington and Mason Plumlee, the money works.
That was mine.
I would absolutely love that. I'm actually going to tweet that out right now.
I was going to say Turner to Charlotte is like, it's been the dream scenario that everyone's talked about. That would be so much fun to watch. And even if it doesn't happen, I would love to see it though. That's, I think
he's coming back this season, right? He's coming back in March, probably.
Turner?
Yeah,
I think he's supposed to come back pretty soon.
Yeah, he's
you got to trade. Spencer Dinwiddie to Dallas.
Ooh,
interesting.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spencer
Hey,
Dinwiddie.
Brian, you wrote an article for us at Basketball News breaking down possible destinations for Dinwiddie. What are your thoughts on just his market and his fit in Dallas?
He was my favorite player to cover while I was with the Nets. So, we got to know each other pretty well his first year there because a lot of people were still arguing about whether or not he's better than Yogi Ferrell. And that's obviously been a thing in the past. So, I followed him pretty closely, and he's gone through these different, sort of style changes. He was initially a pass first point guard, then he had more of a scoring. Whoa. Wait a minute.
Porzingis. Oh my God.
Wait, what? I'm not seeing anything yet. 1 second. Don't.
No, look at the private chat. Look at the private chat, Mark.
Our producer just said that Porzingis is in the trade. Where we
Mark's face.
What?
Processing it right now. Look at Mark's face.
What?
Mark Stein says the Mavericks are trading Kristaps Porzingis to Washington. What?
Dude.
Wow.
What else is included?
Alex, there goes my feature on Porzingis for a couple months ago.
Yes, seriously. Wow.
So okay. So we don't have
Crazy.
nothing
We need
but
details here. We have nothing right now, but oh my gosh. Here.
So Beal and Porzingis are teammates
Yikes.
in Washington?
Wow. It's crazy because we just
out.
talked about this about 30 minutes ago. We said Porzingis wasn't being talked about at all in trade rumors. Now all of a sudden he pops up this morning as a possible candidate to go to Toronto. No one had even thought about him as a possible trade chip. And then here we go. Wizards land Porzingis. I wonder what the deal is. The Mavericks are trading Porzingis for a package centered around Spencer Dinwiddie, so we know that. But there's no other details yet. We'll see.
I thought that because we were talking about this Monday also. I felt like Dallas should be a team that tries to ascend in the Western Conference and tries to join or try to join that pack above them, right? And try to join those contending teams. I want to know what's the nature of this deal though if they're giving Porzingis up.
Bertans
is in the deal. Yeah, that's what they said.
Are they just getting salary dumps?
Wow. So as we get more information, we'll update you guys on what's going back in the trade. But
What
Porzingis, wow. So so let's talk about this then. Porzingis, I'm so confused by this because the Wizards are in a weird spot. They're trying to make a win now move. We kept hearing the link to Sabonis and Jeremy Grant, but both the Pacers and Pistons weren't interested in the assets, but now they land Porzingis. The idea is to try to get a win now piece, a star next to Bradley Beal to keep him happy so he re-signs in the offseason.
Yes,
this
adding
is crazy. What a crazy deadline.
Make me want to re-sign. And what is
Mark.
I mean, he's been fine, but if the
shooting's been off though,
But I think that has to
but
be the idea that you're bringing in someone that can help win now. That's the thought process.
So
I just question it, man.
Is Dinwiddie and Bertans not Dinwiddie and Kuzma?
Oh,
No,
I wouldn't
it
want
sounds
to
like
trade Kuzma.
No,
Kuzma's
it's
been
not. I don't
their
think
best
it's
player almost.
Bertans, Dinwiddie. Yeah,
No,
Kuzma's
but
been.
if I'm Dallas, I would have wanted Kuzma.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here we go.
for sure.
It's just Porzingis to the Wizards for Dinwiddie and Bertans. That's it. That's what Tim McMahon
picks?
says.
Wow.
What in the hell, man? That's
My main
wild.
takeaway there is that Dallas really hated that Porzingis contract.
Yeah, they were ready to get off of it,
out
clearly.
Yeah, because that Dinwiddie contract looks pretty bad right now too, with how he's been playing, his shooting percentages. Both of those deals, it basically just a swap for
to go
some
back
bad
to
deals.
to go back to the Dinwiddie point though. I don't think Washington was the right fit. I do think he'll probably fit better in Dallas if he's going to go downhill and draw contact again, because he's not getting to the free throw line at nearly the same rate that he typically does when he's on. I think that's going to help. I also wonder what happens with Jalen Brunson now, because he's still there and they may not want to extend him. Maybe that turns into a sign and trade this summer. But yeah,
I think they want to keep Brunson and Dorian Finney-Smith. That was what was reported. They want to keep those guys. Oh, the Mavs are also sending a second-round pick. Dallas, according to Mark Stein, Dallas spent the entire deadline day trying to find a home for Porzingis' considerable contract, and they've struck a deal with the Wizards to send him for Dinwiddie and Bertans. But apparently that was their goal today. They talked about the Raptors. They talked about a number of teams that were looking for a big man, and here you go.
So they're not trying to like win now necessarily. Like they'll get in the playoffs, but they're not.
I think they just want out of that contract. That seems like it was the whole purpose.
I think they're a team to watch this summer, though. Just for the rest of the season, they're probably going to be, they may win a round depending on the matchup, but
Man, that's crazy. I was not ready for that.
Me neither.
Cool.
This is nuts. So we've had James Harden, Ben Simmons, Sabonis, CJ McCollum, Kristaps Porzingis, Karis LeVert,
Halliburton.
Like we've had so many crazy trades. Who am I missing? There's so many notable names have been shipped out. This is crazy.
Yeah, Dinwiddie as well.
Dinwiddie's a name, yeah, for sure.
Wow.
I mean, shoot, Andre Drummond and Seth Curry were in that Nets trade, right? Like, those are two players. Those are two guys that we're going to see a lot of now.
One thing for me, just based off them getting Dinwiddie, maybe Dragic now doesn't go to Dallas in the buyout market. Maybe he goes somewhere else.
That's true.
That fills that role for them.
Yeah.
The Clippers and a few other teams were linked to Dragic as well. Like I think there's gonna be a lot of teams showing interest in him, obviously, but everyone kind of assumed that he was going to Dallas. But yeah, maybe that changes some things. The comments are blowing up here. We want you guys to be able to weigh in too. So I'll throw some of those on screen. Let's see. Salary dump for both sides, kind of like we talked about. Brandon says folks are just throwing things in the trade machine at this point and accepting.
I like that.
There's a lot of people weighing in on this and a lot of confusion. People are just as shocked as we are. So, wow.
This is weird. This deadline's weird. I'm going to need like an entire couple days to sort out everything that's going on because this is whack.
They kept Denny and Rui, one of those guys said, and then they made a good point. Like,
yeah.
That's why I asked about Kuzma. Denny, Rui, Kuzma. Dallas just really wanted to just get off the Porzingis deal.
Just looking ahead a little bit for the next 20 minutes, the two things I'm looking out for now are Eric Gordon and then maybe that Ricky Rubio expiring. One of those two things. That can happen.
Oh, yeah. That's something that hasn't got a lot of attention, but Adrian Wojnarowski said that the Pacers have had interest in Ricky Rubio's $17.8 million expiring contract that, teams want cap space this offseason, so they could potentially find a taker for that and, maybe take back some salary too, but essentially find a way to get an asset back for that Rubio deal. So that's something to watch. Eric Gordon is a big one. Jeremy Grant is a big one. Miles Turner potentially. So, even though we've had crazy trades today, there's still quite a few names out there to keep an eye on. So anyone that we missed, anyone else that you guys were paying attention to that I think we mentioned Kenrich Williams. I can't talk. Anyone else that you guys are paying attention to?
I mentioned PJ Washington earlier, but in that same vein, I feel like the Clippers still may do something in, I don't know if it's Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, but I feel like they probably have to consolidate their 4s/3s, their forwards in some way. So I'm wondering if they're going to move off of one of those guys to try to clear more room for, unless Covington is that guy who's just coming in. But I'm wondering if they're going to move one of those guys to sort of clear space. And then if Kawhi and or Paul George come back, then, it wouldn't be as crowded.
We had an interesting comment on our Facebook, and just to read through the comments here about the Mavs, like with the salary they got for Dinwiddie and Bertans, maybe they can go out. Since we mentioned Jalen Smith earlier, went to the Pacers. You have Goga there now, Isaiah Jackson. Maybe they try to get Miles Turner here in the next 20 minutes. Maybe that can make some sense. Maybe reroute.
Jeremy Grant, maybe?
Yeah, Grant's another one.
Dallas and Jeremy Grant's interesting to me, actually.
Wow, what a day.
So is Goran Dragic just where now? He's
He
in
is
San
in
Antonio.
Yeah.
So he's getting bought out.
There have been
And
some rumors here that the Lakers are working on a trade for Terrence Ross with the Magic. They might, who knows if that'll come to fruition, but they're showing some interest apparently.
What salary? I mean, THT would have to go out in that deal for salary, right? That'd make the most sense for Terrence
Yeah.
Ross.
Wow.
I can't believe that Porzingis.
This is crazy. Wow, this is crazy.
As I was writing the news line, and watching your guys' reaction was unbelievable. Like it was priceless. It was really good.
Yeah, that was yeah, man. It was a lot.
Mark, you looked upset.
I don't like that for Washington very much. It's tough for me to buy into that. And it feels like too, I was talking to some people in a group chat about this. I mean, a lot of adding Dinwiddie feels like in case they don't want to pay Brunson in the offseason or if he does leave. I mean, I will say on Dinwiddie's play, I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. His burst hasn't been all the way there this year, but in the games when he doesn't play with Beal, he looks a lot better. But again, that adds in, okay, like what does that look like playing alongside Luka? Because Luka's not exactly some off-ball savant, and Brad is a pretty damn good off-ball player. They never really got it to click, but is he playing in as more of a six-man role? Regardless, I do like making the move. Kristaps was just not that good this year, if we're being honest. The defense has really never come back for him after he had that knee injury 2 years ago. And without the shooting, it's really tough for him. So I mean, I guess maybe Washington's hoping that you turn two kind of rough looking contracts into one better looking one, but that's not really doing it for me, man. I mean, maybe he rehabs and looks better in the next year and a half, but that is a tough sell for me.
I wonder what Porzingis means in terms of like they want to keep Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I mean, it
like,
definitely feels like it.
I don't know, like, is Bradley Beal like this? Alex, maybe you could tell us, like, do they have some friendship that we don't know about?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I mean, I'd imagine with their goal of, re-signing him in the offseason that he would have been involved in the process, that they'd have some kind of conversation with him beforehand. But, yeah, I don't know. I think that they probably understood with the situation that they were in that Beal was frustrated. There have been rumors that Dinwiddie and Beal were kind of having some issues behind the scenes. Dinwiddie even came out and said that his leadership was, not welcomed. And that was kind of surprising to see him say that publicly. A lot of the moves that, the Wizards had made kind of didn't work out after their strong start. So I would be surprised if this was one of the only deals out there that they, felt moved the needle for them. Because, I mean, remember, they had been shopping Harrell, Thomas Bryant, Dinwiddie. They had been shopping everyone in recent weeks. So I'm sure they kind of took all those different offers that were available and went to Beal and asked what you like. And maybe this is the one that stood out for them. So it is definitely surprising. Here we go. Tim McMahon from ESPN says that the Mavs remain optimistic that they'll be able to re-sign Jalen Brunson this summer. The Pistons are known to have serious interest and significant cap space. And then Bobby Marks also mentioned that Dinwiddie gives them some insurance for the Brunson situation. So just in case he were to leave, it gives them some leverage and some insurance. So interesting. Again, we'll be here for the next hour and 15 minutes, breaking down every trade that happens, every rumor that pops up. So already a crazy day. So many moves. I thought for sure, like after Sabonis was traded and LeVert and McCollum was traded earlier in the week, I was like, man, we might not have a lot to talk about during our show on Thursday. But here we go. So many big moves happening today, and so many still, rumors that could still happen. A lot of trades that are still being discussed right now. So coming up here in the deadline, we have 12 minutes left till the deadline. Now, sometimes we see, the 10, 15 minutes afterwards that other moves pop up. But wow, what a busy day. One thing our producer Brian mentions is that the Knicks have been very quiet today. We had Moke Hamilton actually wrote an article for us last night at Basketball News about how this might be another quiet deadline for the Knicks, even though there were rumors that they have been linked to different, players. There was some talk about could Julius Randle be on the way out, or at the very least, like Alec Burks and some of those guys, Evan Fournier. But not a lot of talk so far involving the Knicks.
Real quickly, just from the Suns side of things, I got some for Aaron Holiday. They acquired him just with cash considerations. So that means they have an extra player on their roster now, whether it be they deal Dario Saric in that contract or they waive someone one of their minimum salaries. The Suns now have to do something at least, whether it be waiving or make another trade here in the next 10 minutes.
Man. Bobby Marks points out that the last year of Dinwiddie's contract becomes guaranteed if he plays in 50 games this season and next season. He has 5 sets of bonuses in his contract, including a $1.5 million bonus if he plays 50 games or more. There's also this really crazy bonus that I saw Hoopsite talk about. If the Mavericks win the championship, he will earn a $1 bonus. That was something that was reported whenever he was in Washington. So a $1 bonus for winning a championship, which is pretty funny. But now that transfers to Dallas. Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report says Jalen Smith is unlikely to remain in Indiana. Pacers are receiving significant interest in the young big man. So we'll see if they can flip him. So that kind of answers the question, Mark, about if Jalen Smith arriving in Indiana means.
Hey man, if
Miles
he gets
Turner.
traded, I don't have to write about it today. So, I mean, I'll be happy to write about him regardless. But we'll see. I'm already slammed today, so whatever.
One
happens.
team to keep an eye on for Jalen Smith or any of these other big men that are available is the Toronto Raptors. We mentioned Mike Scotto reported that they were talking about everyone. They had made calls about Porzingis. They had made calls about Miles Turner, Robert Williams, Nicholas Claxton, Yusuf Nurkic, a lot of big men they've shown interest in. So maybe Jalen Smith or one of these other big men that's available. Rashawn Holmes could potentially end up in Toronto. That's something to watch. I know you guys had mentioned there was a report that Atlanta is not making a trade. So I was going to mention Danilo Gallinari was being talked about by a few teams like the Raptors, but it sounds like he's probably staying put then. Let's see. If you guys have any questions, as I mentioned, drop them in the chat. I see some people dropping comments in now. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Paul had thought the same thing here. Maybe Toronto. Surprised we haven't seen anything on Eric Gordon yet. Not only have we not seen a trade, it's been kind of quiet on the Eric Gordon front. We really haven't seen many rumors popping up, which is kind of interesting.
Rashawn Holmes, too.
Yeah,
Surprised
Rashawn Holmes.
not
Guys
seeing
that had
anything on
been
him.
Yeah, worth noting too with
came
Rashawn.
out-
I think he only played 12 minutes last night with Sabonis' first game there. So
Mhm.
if he doesn't get moved, I mean that's shocking.
Yeah, he played like 2 minutes in the first half, right? It was
Yeah.
like very. So I talked to like multiple scouts and executives the last few days, and they all thought another trade was coming for Sacramento. They had said either Bagley or Holmes will get moved, but a lot of them thought both might get traded. So yeah, Rashawn could absolutely be moved here in the next few minutes. Let's see.
And there's stuff
Nice.
that usually gets announced after 3. So, like, I feel like that happened last year. I don't remember which it was. I know Oladipo to Miami came in at the buzzer, and then I think there was something else like right after. But Oladipo was like right at 3 p.m. or something along those lines.
Yeah, as long as the teams get it into the NBA, like, and submit the details for the trade call before 3, you can,
Mhm.
finalize it at like 3:15, 3:30 even. So, but we've all seen situations where teams have tried to get it in and they missed the window, they missed the deadline. So we'll see. The next 8 minutes here will be interesting. Yeah, the one thing with Eric Gordon too, I know that Kelly Iko and a few others from The Athletic had reported that the Rockets are fine keeping him, and basically if they don't get a first round pick, that they're okay with holding him and either trying to move him in the offseason or just keeping around because they feel like he has so much value to that young core and what he brings on and off the court. I thought that was kind of crazy with how he's playing this year. The fact that he was 33 years old, has an injury history. It's kind of risky to hold on to him versus cashing in that asset because, he could get hurt or, right now he's shooting career highs from the field and from 3. So he can come back down to earth. I think they should trade him, but it's been pretty quiet today. We'll see. Tim, I know Tim's a Bucks fan. He's jumped on some of these before. It took one season for the Bucks to disassemble the greatest team I've ever assembled. I know Tim's enjoying this.
I'm nervous.
Man,
I'm like
what a
super
day.
nervous. I feel like there's one more coming.
Nuggets are one of the teams in the mix for Jalen Smith, according to Jake Fisher. So interesting
like
there.
I can see that.
We'll see. If you guys see anything, feel free to drop it in the comments, or if any of you guys. Oh, Paul's been predicting stuff left and right. We just said Denver is now in the mix, so that's interesting for Jalen Smith, maybe. Yeah, if you guys see any rumors, stuff that I missed, feel free to shout it out. Pretty crazy.
It kind of feels like on the Eric Gordon situation that the Rockets are holding super firm on a first-round pick, and maybe the market's drying out on them a little bit because Cleveland went for LeVert, Utah got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe Phoenix is out of it now, getting Aaron Holiday. So maybe them like being so steadfast in that first-round pick might be what ends up Gordon not leaving, so to say.
Well, how do we feel about that? Because, again, that is a strong asset, and their take is they can wait till the offseason or just keep him. But with how well he's playing and the fact that he is getting older, do you think they should, even if it's budging and getting 2 second-round picks, because like Karis LeVert, for example, the rumor was that the Cavs wanted 2 first-round picks. Instead, they got a first and 2 seconds, including a Houston second rounder. That's pretty early. Do you think they should budge and move him, or would you be fine if you're the Rockets keeping Gordon?
I actually don't mind them keeping him too much. I think the off-court value gets swept under the rug a lot, and especially with a Houston team that is so young and is going to have so many young players for the next couple of years, I think that is underrated as far as value that Eric Gordon can bring to a team. We've already seen some kind of chemistry off-court issues that the Rockets had earlier this year with Christian Wood and Eric Gordon. So I think, again, having someone like that around is very important. And yeah, like they definitely run the risk of him kind of falling off with old age from a talent standpoint, and then you kind of have swung and missed. A single first-round pick is obviously super helpful. I would imagine that's not going to be a franchise-altering deal breaker. So I think that's a risk, honestly, I'm okay taking. If they really value what he brings to the team just from a leadership standpoint and putting a lot of these young players like Jalen Green, Josh Christopher, all on the right path, I'm okay with them keeping. I don't think there's a necessity that you have to move him, even though from a pure spreadsheet asset management standpoint, it's probably the smart thing to do.
Real quick, some questions popping in. There was a report that they're going to allow him to take his time and kind of get acclimated, and then they'll bring him back. So we'll see. I don't think we have any kind of official timeline on Ben Simmons making his debut in Brooklyn, but he has to kind of get in shape and get acclimated there. I agree with this comment. Props to the Pacers, man. I think I didn't expect them to get as much as they did for Karis LeVert. I know they had wanted 2 first-round picks, but to get back, a first and then 2 seconds, including an early second from Houston, to get back that, to get Tyrese Halliburton for Sabonis and what they've been able to do. I think Chad Buchanan and Kevin Pritchard, they both deserve a ton of credit. They've had a really, really good deadline. And then Miles Turner, everyone assumed that he was going to get moved, but if he fits with the new young core there. Oh, we have another trade?
Eric Gordon.
There it is. All right.
Wow.
Brian's saying, this is from Yahoo Sports, Chris Haynes. Toronto is trading Chris Boucher, Malachi Flynn to the Rockets for Gordon, Tice, and
wait. Eric or Brian is saying no. Hold on a second. Answer for yourself, Brian. Did you get bamboozled? Right, hey, Brian, did you get bamboozled? You're on screen.
Yeah, it's a fake account.
The delay.
Was it Chris P. Haynes or something like that?
No, it's Chris Haynes, but it's a different @ I got hacked.
If you fall for a fake account and we read it on the air, you have to come answer for your sins. So I just had to bring you up for that. All right. Yeah, well, Eric Gordon has not been traded then. All right. We'll put you back, Brian, but keep us posted on anything else.
That would have been crazy.
All right.
Toronto's out here trying
Apologies, everyone. That was not true. Anyway, yeah, back to what we were saying. I think the Pacers deserve a ton of credit for what they've been able to do. Evan, I know you have ties to Pacers, and Mark, you do as well. What do you guys think about what the Pacers have done this deadline?
Mark, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still just interested to see if they do make anything else. I'm not sure that they actually will. But I feel a lot more confident about where they're going now. For the last couple of years, they've been, especially after Victor's injury in 2018-19, like I think that's what's been, so not to launch into a whole thing, but this whole team was built around Victor Oladipo after what he did in 2017-18, because this team wasn't supposed to come together. I mean, in 17-18, they were projected to win 32 games, if I remember correctly, and they ended up winning 48, taking LeBron to 7 games in the first round for the first time in his career. And then they built around that team. And once Victor got injured, which happened like 30 games into the next season, everything is just kind of falling apart. And now that they finally have decided to commit to rebuilding and finding a new direction, it seems like it's going to be some more offloading off of veteran contracts headed into the offseason and around the draft and just building around what they have now. At least that's what I'm hoping will happen. I mean, obviously, I don't ever want to wish guys being moved, whether it's what they want or against their will or anything, but like, I'm interested just to see how committed they are to doing a full rebuild, or whether or not they view this more as just retooling for next year and preparing for that.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those same statements you mentioned there, Mark. And honestly, I think for Indiana's side of things, I was just looking at this up last night. I have my notes still just because I was so curious about how Indiana's. Oh, go ahead.
We do have one trade. The Rockets and the Celtics. I want to make sure this is real. Daniel Tice to the Boston Celtics. So I know you had mentioned that earlier.
What happened? Oh,
Reunion.
That one is real. Woj and Kelly Iko. Actually, props to Kelly. He got that first, and Woj just confirmed it. So, yeah, Boston. You mentioned that as a possibility earlier, Evan or Ethan. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that fit?
Well, we can look back at his career with the Celtics. No, I think that's a cool reunion. I am glad that the Celtics have a third big who will at least play some semblance of defense. So I think Tice is a very solid fit. I think him coming off the bench is totally great. I think he might have been overextended a little bit as a starter towards the end of last season when they were really kind of pushing him there and trying to make him stretch the floor and do all the stuff, which he doesn't totally have in his bench consistently.
You got more.
Dennis Schroeder is the outgoing piece. So Boston trades Dennis Schroeder to the Houston Rockets for Daniel Tice.
Is that a buyout market for Schroeder?
Possibly. Interesting.
Yeah, he's expiring. Yeah, no, actually, and that totally makes a lot of sense. Like you slot it after you get Derek White to be either like your 1B kind of point guard-ish situation. You have a third big in Daniel Tice. Dennis Schroeder gets traded. Totally, like, it's very sensible thing to do, I think, for the Celtics.
Interesting. All right, so we'll see if any more news pops up here. It is now 3:01, so the deadline has passed. Bill Oren reports that no trades for the Lakers. They tried, but nothing got done. I think once we heard they weren't willing to trade that 2027 first-round pick, it kind of made sense. Taylor Horton-Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, they don't really have a whole lot of value league-wide. So now if you're a Lakers fan, keep an eye on the buyout market. We'll see if any buyouts pop up. So, man, it's interesting because Dave McMenamin from ESPN said that the players really wanted to trade and that, quote, standing pat at the deadline was not a viable option. So when the players are recognizing that, okay, yep, we'll just confirm the Schroeder aspect of that. Interesting. So Lakers, no moves. Nothing from the New York Knicks, it seems. We'll see if there's any other moves that pop up here in the next few minutes. So if Eric Gordon is staying put, that's very interesting. I mean, it's very possible they got it in before the deadline, but maybe he's not going to be on the move, which would be kind of surprising. I think he's one of those people that everyone assumed would be traded, but what a crazy deadline, though.
Oh, absolutely crazy. Yeah, I'm really curious now as to watch what happens to Dennis Schroeder because he's a guy to me that a lot of teams are going to be really fighting for in the buyout market now, and maybe a team like Phoenix can make a lot of sense for that because they still have half their middle exception they could use for the buyout market. So something to watch out for there with Schroeder because he's going to be a guy that a lot of contenders are going to be going after, I imagine.
No, for sure. All right. I don't see any other deals popping up. We're keeping an eye on that. If there are any other trades that pop up, we'll be sure to mention those and break those down. But yeah, so many big names moved today. A lot of trades happened. The Warriors did not make a deadline move, according to Anthony Slater. So nothing there. Let's see. We'll see if any other deals pop up.
No more trades for the Suns. Just FYI, I just found that out.
Okay, so nothing else from the Suns. Are you reporting that, or there we go, Gambo?
No, from Gambo, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So Holiday and Craig only moves for them. Mark Medina confirms Lakers roster standing as is. Jeremy Grant remaining with the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons have not made a move, and they are comfortable moving forward together, according to Shams. So Grant was another one of those names that people were kind of wondering, could he be on the move? But he is staying in Detroit as well. So interesting. I think some of the names that we thought would be moved today, like Eric Gordon, Jeremy Grant, end up staying put, and names like James Harden and Kristaps Porzingis that no one expected end up getting traded. So any thoughts on who could be available in the buyout market? I know we just talked about Schroeder. I'd imagine Goran Dragic would be someone that pops up as a possibility. I think try to think who else could be a possible buyout candidate.
Tristan
Thompson is a great one. Yeah. Anyone else that you guys think could be potentially bought out?
Nikias wrote about Gary Harris. I think if he gets bought out, I think that is a really
good one. Make sure you guys check that article out, actually. Basically, Nikias looked at different destinations for Gary Harris and who could make sense. We mentioned Josh Richardson, potentially. That could be one. I'd imagine they'd probably try to hold on to him and see if he has any value in the offseason. But Gary Harris is a very good one. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else.
Lopez. staying with Orlando. Robin Lopez is one probably, and I don't think Rashawn Holmes is not going to get bought out, is he? Like that's not happening.
No,
right? Like, that would be crazy.
No,
but I can't believe the Kings. Well, unless we see something, didn't move him.
Houston is also getting Enes Kanter, Enes Freedom Kanter, and Bruno Fernando in that deal. So, so Boston sends Schroeder, Freedom, and Fernando to the Rockets for Daniel Tice.
They had enough of that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Bruno Fernando, I thought was going to be pretty good, honestly. I don't know what his NBA future is if he has one, but I look, Houston's just trying stuff, right? It's kind of like what the Thunder did in getting KZ Okpala and what I guess the Pacers did in getting Jalen Smith, although we don't know if he's going to stay there. But yeah.
Yeah, I like what the Celtics did, honestly, today. I think they had a really good deadline. Ethan, what are you thinking?
I really like a lot of the moves they made. We talked about Derek White a lot, but great addition. Starting caliber addition, who he might even come off the bench, which is pretty amazing. That's a really good move. Tice makes sense. You got rid of Enes Freedom and Bruno Fernando, who should not be in the rotation if you're serious about making like a legit playoff push. And Dennis Schroeder, who was the piece that you were kind of looking to move. And so now you've opened up, I assume, with also trading PJ Dozier and Bol, you've opened up a couple buyout roster spots, which is exactly what you're trying to do if you don't really want to play Aaron Nesmith or you want to look for wing depth. We mentioned Gary Harris, maybe Terrence Ross is a buyout candidate. Like there's a lot of flexibility for the Celtics to now address the buyout market and add veteran pieces and boost this bench, which really needs it. I am very satisfied with this deadline from a Celtics perspective. I think this was a lot. They did a lot, and they also didn't like overhaul anything, which is I think what they needed to do.
I agree. Anyone else have thoughts on what the Celtics did?
Oh, I mean, I loved getting Derek White. And now that we know Marcus Smart's going to be here, as long as something doesn't pop in the last minute, I don't want to just say that they're like some sneaky title contender or anything. But I do think I'm very interested in what they can do in the playoffs. I thought that they've really put things together over the last couple weeks. But I mean, I love what they've done at the deadline, for being honest, especially as we mentioned, getting off of Enes Freedom is a great part too. Really helps with their social media presence in general. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Can we hit on the Lakers really quick too? Because I just want to say, especially with them doing nothing, I mean, this feels like Frank Vogel's going to be gone pretty soon. Especially with how their press conference and everything went last night. I just don't see how this cannot result in Frank getting fired, and we can definitely debate whether that's right or wrong. But I mean, watching that team play last night was kind of gross. Like that they even lost and had a game that close to that Portland team that just lost to Orlando the night before. I mean, this team is pretty wayward, and I mean, like what is happening on the buyout market that is actually going to make this team any better?
So that's the big question. Who can really add a difference maker? I don't think there's any fix out there that turns their season around this year. I really don't.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty out on what the Lakers are at right now. Also, Woj just reported no deals for the Knicks. Sources tell ESPN. Yeah.
Not a huge surprise there. Okay, so nothing for the Lakers, nothing for the Knicks, nothing for the Pistons. We'll see if anything else comes in. Let's see. Casey Johnson says the Bulls never seriously. Whoa, what just happened there? Okay. All right, let's change things up a bit here until Evan and Brian get back. The Bulls never seriously considered including Patrick Williams in any package. They've also discussed mid-March as a soft target date for his return. So they seem like they want to keep Patrick Williams and see what happens. Try to think if there's anything else that popped up here. Tim McMahon. Trying to read a tweet that popped up. Oh, they will release Moses Brown to create the roster spot necessary to complete the trade for Porzingis. So
Moses Brown will save the Lakers.
So we're done with Moses Brown. That's it. Damn, I actually like that trade when they got him.
Yeah, apparently he is.
Reunite him with Cole Anthony. That was his high school teammate.
No deal for Jalen Smith ultimately materialized. Pacers had the clear goal of recouping further draft capital, but they will keep Jalen Smith. So there you go.
Well, that sounds like an endearing start to his tenure. Hopefully they do a better job with integrating him to the roster.
We didn't want you, but like we'll keep you, I guess.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
You can stay, whatever.
Terrence Ross tweeted out the "I'm not leaving" gif from
that's amazing.
Was it Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah, that's awesome. Not a surprise, but Dave McMiniman says the Lakers will monitor the buyout market. With a full 15-man roster, they would need to waive a player in order to add someone. So something to watch there. So really the only move the Knicks made wasn't a deadline one, but, the Cam Reddish trade. There had been some talk that maybe they would look to flip Reddish and move him, since you had reports that, he wasn't playing and Tibbs apparently didn't want him, which is kind of crazy to put out there. But nothing there. The Memphis Grizzlies did not make a trade, according to reports. So seems like we haven't had any of those post-deadline deals that have popped up this time around. But gotta say, one of the best trade deadlines in recent memory. So much activity, so many crazy things that happened. We got some comments popping in. Good point. Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Smith. Didn't they get picked back-to-back? I believe they were.
Yeah.
And we see how that's worked out. Let's see. People are disappointed with the Lakers.
I don't know who's going to want to go to them in the buyout market. I mean, some people will take the chance, I suppose, but
the thing is, they're always attractive because people love Los Angeles and the idea of playing on that. Like, if you feel like you're going to go there and get minutes, you're playing on national TV all the time. So that can help your stock and you can get, a better payday next offseason. Like, there are selfish reasons to go there too, away from wanting to win.
Do you think the good outweighs the bad though? Because I feel like it could be also, especially now with this team in particular, incredibly stressful just to be a part of that whole experience.
Fair. Yeah, it might be. If there's another team out there that, is always on national or not on a national TV as much, but you can get similar playing time and exposure, maybe you consider that instead. But definitely will be interesting to see who they go after.
No trace for the Heat apparently either.
I love
5 Reasons Sports says that no trace for Miami.
Okay. Stat Muse. They count so funny sometimes. They have stats that Shams had 11 breaking news stories today. Woj had 8. So cracking how many trades they broke.
I don't know if that's accurate though.
Yeah,
was it?
My thing I've noticed with Shams today, and no disrespect to either of them, they're obviously amazing. Shams did get a lot first, but I feel like Woj had more full trade details.
Yep.
First.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. So, and again, they're obviously really good at what they do, but I think there's an asterisk there.
Well, and there's also you have trades that happen today, but we've had several days of trades now. So I'm not sure if they're counting those deals as well, because it's not just moves that happened today. You had, multiple big trades happen in the last few days. And then also had again, Brian Windhurst was spot on yesterday with that whole situation. And then Woj said there's no talks even happening. And so there was some, inter ESPN,
ESPN crime.
ESPN crime.
Yeah,
interesting to see all that kind of stuff happen. But we have some questions popping in. People
our producer tells us the Rockets are waving Enos. Of course they are.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Yeah, it's not a surprise.
I'm surprised the Mavericks, and I guess we don't really know for sure yet, didn't, and I know Porzingis wasn't the greatest fit and he was struggling, but they didn't really address getting any other big at all after that trade.
That's what
I thought was interesting.
Can we bring up actually another thing? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ethan.
No.
Where are you guys at with Christian Wood? Because I mean, I'm not super surprised that he didn't get dealt, just based that there hadn't really been a lot of reporting around it after there had been some earlier in the month. I'm not trying to be harsh to him, but I mean, Christian Wood is playing like he does not want to be in Houston to a degree. And I don't know if there's more stuff going on behind the scenes, but to see him not get moved, to see nothing really change in Houston other than moving Daniel Tice out, I'm just a little bit perplexed at that situation right now. It's been a little bit odd. I went from enjoying their games earlier this year to now just being kind of like, it's been a very rough watch for them the last couple weeks. I'm just not really sure what to make of it.
I like how you started talking about Christian Wood and Nekias gets him right away. Like, that was perfect.
We slandering? No.
That's hilarious. No, you're right though. There really wasn't. I know there had been like some rumors like a few weeks ago that like maybe they would consider it or they were open to it, but they weren't shopping him. And then it kind of just got real quiet. So I don't know if they just want to see him next to their young core for like a little bit longer, or I don't know. I'm curious. Oh, wait, is that real, Brian? Did he tweet something? Oh, never mind. Okay, I'm curious. Yeah, the Christian Wood stuff. It would not surprise me if like this offseason, next trade deadline, we're hearing his name more as a possible trade chip. But yeah, I don't love what Houston did today either. I agree with you. And anyone else have thoughts on what the Rockets did?
I would just pretty much agree with Mark. And yeah, I think Nekias and Steve have talked multiple times on the Dunker Spot about Christian Wood. So I would say go for it.
It's just disappointing, man. Like, he's a lot better than he's playing, and it's frustrating to watch night in, night out. Especially, like, I know just from talking to people, like, this is part of the reason why Detroit was willing to move on from him when they did. But, I mean, if you want to be that all-star player and you think you are that guy, like, you got to play like it, man. And I'm not trying to be harsh and unfair, but it's just been very disheartening to watch, especially if he does actually want to be there. Like, if you then it's like it just reminds me of watching Hassan Whiteside in 2018. Like, I'm just like, what are we doing here, man? So I'm not trying to make this a slander pod, but like, it's odd, man.
It's too late. You brought me back to 2018 Whiteside. I watched all of those. Jesus Christ.
Oh God, yeah.
But the numbers.
The numbers, the blocks. I hate to be this guy. Because the trade deadline happened 15 minutes ago, but people are going to be asking this. I see it on Twitter already. Winners and losers. It's like immediate, instant, way too early reactions. I get it. I deserve that. But because everyone's asking, are there any teams that stand out to you? Like we had mentioned earlier, teams that come to mind. I like what Boston did. Again, Indiana is a winner for me just because, we knew they were a team to watch at this deadline. They were going to blow it up, but they got more for Sabonis and for LeVert than I expected. I liked that they kept Miles Turner. Taking a chance with someone like a Jalen Smith who could have value and, end up playing pretty well, and he's young. I like what they did. Anyone else have any? We'll start with winners. Any winners that jump out to any of you guys?
It's got to be Boston.
Yeah,
it's got to be Boston. Yeah. You clear those kind of roster spots. You get Derek White, which I still don't understand how Boston was able to pull that one off, man. If he was available, like some teams should be kicking themselves.
Yeah.
For not putting in something for Derek White. That's incredible. But no, doing that while also ducking under the tax, and also Brad Stevens can't quit Daniel Tice, which is hilarious. But
yeah,
they pulled it off, open roster spots, and got better at the same time. So I have nothing but good things to say about Boston.
Anyone else?
I think I agreed. Boston and Indiana. For the Pacers, just to kind of take the kind of swings that they did without, they still kind of kept a lot of the trade quote unquote assets for like future use. Like they didn't make a move just to make a move and like get someone out of there. I feel like everything had somewhat of a purpose. So I would give them a lot of credit too.
Yeah. I would say too, I mean, not necessarily winner, but like I liked what they did. I would have Phoenix there. I think getting Torrey Craig was a good move. Although, I mean, I'm not trying to slander Torrey Craig, but we've just seen like once the playoffs happen, he's not going to factor in as much. So I do still have questions. I really wanted to see if they could make anything happen with Dario Saric's contract in terms of bringing in somebody who would be, more of a win now replacement in the top of their rotation. That didn't happen. I still think Torrey's going to be a positive for them. Adding Aaron Holiday's interesting for sure. I think like Elfrid Payton's actually been like kind of decent for them, not terrible, but like, I mean, adding in another guy who helps with campaign out right now. So I'm encouraged. I appreciate that they did something. So
I think I also have to mention the Sixers. The fact that they were able to get James Harden. I was someone that was saying, oh, just make a move earlier, take the Sacramento offer, take one of these other deals out there. I didn't think they were going to be able to get one of those, top guys or difference makers like Daryl Morey have been saying they wanted. So the fact that it did work out and that gamble paid off, obviously it was months and months of the Ben Simmons drama, and that annoyed all of us, and we were done talking about it. But for that all, and this could have blown up in Daryl Morey's face if some of the offers that were out there ended up looking better than what they ultimately got. But to get James Harden, again, who knows how they're going to fit together, and obviously they're going to have to give him a huge contract and all that kind of stuff. But to be able to get James Harden after everything that kind of happened, and for Daryl Morey's bet to pay off, you got to mention the Sixers as a winner today too. Brian, how about you? Who are your winners?
I like what Indiana did in terms of getting Tyrese Halliburton, because I could see sort of a roadmap to, okay, this team can be competitive. Not this year, obviously, but when guys are, if they keep Miles Turner when he's healthy, and then they could be an interesting team with Chris Duarte there. Malcolm Brogdon is still there. Buddy Hield, I don't know if they're going to keep him, but I could see the roadmap to them becoming viable, right? I have questions, especially about Washington, just getting Kristaps Porzingis and what that's going to do and where that's going to go. And is that going to entice Bradley Beal to want to stay longer? Or is it just as simple as, hey, we're going to pay you a lot of money, so you're going to stay anyway? But I have questions about a lot of teams and a lot of what we just saw. But Washington, and I think even Dallas, who joined them in that deal, that's the one for me. To me, that was the most shocking move of the day. Was the Kristaps Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans deal. Because that's the one where I'm like, okay, what are you guys, each of you doing? Like, y'all need to stop this right now and like explain this to everybody. Explain it to the class, like what's going on here.
Explain it like you're 5, right? Nikai says that's your favorite saying. Nikai, you weren't here. You have to. You weren't here for the Porzingis trade. You didn't get to see our meltdown and all of us surprised. Now that you're back here, what are your thoughts on that move?
I feel like I went through like 8 stages of grief with this deal. One was like, what? And then I'm like, okay, cool. Dallas seems to not love paying Kristaps this much. And, he's had the injury concerns and stuff. Luka's been able to play well without Kristaps. Like, okay, I get it. And then it's like, oh, wait, Spencer Dinwiddie's also coming back from injury. They're also getting Davis Bertans, who has been one of the worst players in the league this year and is on a bad contract. So I'm just like, okay, so if you're going to pay one guy, at least pay someone that can give you some semblance of rim protection. And for Washington, I'm like, okay, I get the gamble, but do you want to be locked into Kristaps if Bradley Beal is also, he's either going to be gone or you're going to be paying him like $40 million a year. And so I'm just kind of confused with both sides. Like, I need to sit and think about it more. Like, by the time I do the pod tonight, like, it'll probably make some more sense to me. But that was my initial reaction. Like, what are either of these teams doing right now?
Yeah, I think I definitely liked it more for the Mavs, just in the idea of I'm getting some blowback from on Twitter, but I just haven't been overly whelmed by Kristaps this year. I think his defense has really taken a hit since he had that knee injury a couple years ago. The offense, especially with the shooting, has just been way off. And like you mentioned, Nikai, they've been playing well without him. Like, I know that adding Dinwiddie and Bertans isn't sexy, and in some ways it's worse than that. It's ugly, but
wow, slander!
So
I can't
bad
believe
at analogies. But like, I just think with Dinwiddie, like, at least the idea of, okay, we've seen him play well-ish when Beal isn't playing. Of course, he's playing alongside Luka now, so how is that any different? I think you can at least hope that Bertans is going to look better. This is not really projecting anything well. I think, to me, it's more like you at least have a little bit of flexibility now being off of where where Porzingis was. So I at least feel like slightly better about that. And clearly, they haven't been comfortable with where they're at with Kristaps for a while. So I think it's just kind of righting the wrongs of the last front office to a degree.
Before we get to the losers, real quick, there's some notes here I want to run through. So the Thunder they're still $23 million out of the salary floor. So that money will now be split up and given to the current roster. So if you're a Thunder player, you're a winner today. Yeah, you're loving this. You just made some extra money, which is very nice. So Thunder players, definitely winners. Ben Simmons has already talked to Kevin Durant and Sean Marks, according to Rich Paul. Simmons is eager to join the Nets and ramp up for a return this season. Paul says we've got work to do to get him back to play, but it's a great step in the right direction. And then interesting here, the Nuggets are signing DeMarcus Cousins to another 10-day contract. And then Brian Windhorst says that there potentially was a deal discussed with the Rockets and Lakers. The Rockets would have received Russell Westbrook, Taylor Horton Tucker, and a 2027 first-round pick, and the Lakers would have gotten John Wall and Christian Wood. So very interesting. I am surprised that popped up, but Wendy said that may have been discussed. So it's funny, Mark, you just mentioned Christian Wood, and we had talked about how Russell Westbrook seemed like there was no chance of getting traded unless it was for John Wall. But if they could have landed Christian Wood, maybe that's interesting. Thoughts on that potential deal that was apparently discussed?
Would have been one heck of a haul if the Lakers could have pulled it off. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure about the fit, but it's just like Christian Wood's
do it.
talented and
Better than what's
surely
going on
John
now.
Wall
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah.
Oh God, what a time!
I feel like the Lakers are, I don't want to say they're a loser today because they didn't do anything, but that was unexpected, or that was expected. They were a loser from last offseason, and they continue to like be a loser because everything they did last offseason, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a surprise what happened today, but I mean, they put themselves in this position. So I don't know how they kind of get themselves out of this now. Like, yeah, we talked about the buyout market, but like, who can they really add as a difference maker that turns their season around through the buyout market? They're in a tough spot.
Yeah. One thing I want to hit on too, I have to bounce in a minute, but
yeah.
I mean, can we talk about Utah? Like, I promise I'm not trying to slander, but I'm gonna slander.
That's what everyone says before they slander.
Exactly. Yeah, I just I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is an interesting prospect. He has certainly not played well though. Like, he has been a rough NBA player so far. I mean, I think you can make the argument that New Orleans is in a better place if he played like he was like a lot of people were hoping for, me included, prior to the season starting. I just don't know what this really does for Utah adding him. Like, I'm sure, like, to be fair, I'm sure that they had like they undoubtedly looked through other options and ways to go, but I don't know how you can look at where they're at right now as a roster and say Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to solve our problems come playoff time. Like, I know, I think it was Woj mentioned yesterday that Quinn Snyder had mentioned that he will be part of the rotation moving forward, which I get. But I'm not really sure how I feel about this, considering that this is going to be the selling point as their main move. I don't really feel any better about them moving forward.
They needed a wing, and they needed a defensive wing very badly, and they didn't get it. And like, I feel like
him, yeah.
Like, I feel like if Utah was going to make the kind of move to make the swing for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like, it was either going to be, hey, we're going to flip Nickeil Alexander-Walker for that kind of veteran forward, or, all right, cool, we have Nickeil, we've had this slide. I don't think we're ready to make the title push right now. We don't have the assets to make the move for like a Jeremy Grant or something like that. All right, let's go ahead and move off of Jordan Clarkson. Let's get some more assets in the chest. Let's get some flexibility. So then this offseason, we're going to make the push, and we're going to really try to make some waves around Mitchell and Gobert, et cetera, et cetera. And so to just end up with Nickeil Alexander-Walker is just like, okay, when do you play him? Who do you play him with? Because if he's just going to continue to take and miss tough shots,
then what's the point? Yeah,
like,
I mean, you have
what's
Jordan
the material
difference? So.
Yeah, like, what's the material difference between him and the Ingles roster spot within a playoff setting? Because like, you're not going to be getting good things from either if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm interested too because I mean, he's a really weird case. He was coming out of Virginia Tech. He was like a toolsy 3-and-D ancillary guy who was just more of like really interesting passer, more of a connective wing, and then he has been absolutely nothing like that in New Orleans. I mean, maybe Utah's front office thinks they can mold him more into that, but like, that's not happening in 2 months. Like, you're not totally shifting a guy's wiring and what he's going to do. So I don't know, man. I feel similarly to you. In a vacuum, I think it's like intriguing, but for what they are projecting, what they want to do this year, I have questions.
So real quick, people are commenting. It looks like a Warriors fan is frustrated with the lack of moves today. Says, imagine being a Warriors fan and seeing a lot of teams getting better while we don't even try because we're, quote, already good. So
you are already good, though.
I mean, to be fair.
I like that already goes in quotes. Like, he doesn't believe it. Like, what are you talking about, man? Come on.
Like, didn't the 9-game winning streak just get snapped? Like, this is.
I mean, I get it. I know that they got demolished by Hassan Whiteside last night because they have had some issues with backup bigs, but like, I just think, I mean, Draymond Green has been out for like it feels like a month now. I think it's around a month. I'm just not that worried about them. Like I think they're already worrying about how reintegrating James Wiseman is going to go. I'm certainly interested to see how that goes as well. But they just, I mean, all reporting on them the last month has been that they're not really looking to do anything and that they're looking to stand pat because they don't want to ruin what they have now. And I mean, I can't really fault them for that considering how good they've looked.
So we went through our winners of the deadline. I had mentioned, the Lakers, but not really because of what happened today so much. But who are some losers? I mean, I think the obvious one that everyone's talking about on Twitter the last few days has been the Sacramento Kings. And not so much because of who Sabonis is the player, but because the ceiling for this team doesn't feel very high. And it feels like if you're going to trade someone like a Tyrese Halliburton, it should be for someone that's going to help you more than Sabonis. But, I did an article for Basketball News yesterday. I talked to a bunch of executives around the NBA, and they were just bashing this trade for the Kings and saying that they would not have traded Halliburton, that the best case scenario for this duo for Fox and Sabonis is, a play-in game or an 8th seed, then a first-round exit. So basically, if you're not going to have more success, then why are you trading your best player, Tyrese Halliburton, who's 21 years old and could become very special in the future? So, and there was also the perception that they may have been able to get Sabonis without trading Halliburton. They had other assets, and the other teams that were being linked to him were Washington, Portland, and they didn't really have the same assets to compete with the Kings. So, did they bid against themselves? That's kind of the perception around the league. I wrote that article about it. And a lot of people are calling them a loser. What are your thoughts on possible losers around the NBA at this trade deadline?
Specifically with the Kings, I feel bad if last night's any indication for Rashawn Holmes. That if the 12 minutes and 2 first half minutes is any indication, he's not going to get the same kind of role now that Sabonis is here, which obviously Sabonis is very good, but there was just so many teams that you could see him fitting with as like a trade destination. So many teams that even looking now could still probably have used him, and it's just going to probably come at some kind of detriment to his playing time and what he's able to do.
Maybe not losers per se, but I guess this qualifies as losers, but just the Knicks' inactivity, like their inability to like move stuff and just get picks back or get young players back. And they're still like kind of in the middle of nowhere now at I think 24 and 31. I think that's sort of startling to me. Because it's like, all right, now what is it that you're going to do? Are you just going to maybe waive a couple guys, create some spots, or buy out a couple guys and create some spots and just try to, play some young guys toward the end of the year? I don't see Tibbs doing that because he still wants to win games and play guys a lot of minutes. So I think the Knicks are the one for me. Just the lack of doing anything, that's not good, I would say. I would say that they didn't have a good day today.
Yeah. Anyone else?
The Lakers need to do something. If nothing else, then like find a team with an open roster spot. Move like Bazemore and cash considerations for like a top 55 protected second or something. Like they needed to clear out some clutter at the very least. If you couldn't get rid of Russ, for them to do nothing is just that's just not tenable to me.
Especially you had a report yesterday from Dave McMiniman saying that the players on the roster felt changes had to be made and that, quote, standing pat was not a viable option. So when the players are saying something's got to happen and then nothing happens, and like you said, they could have at least cleared some roster spots so that, in the buyout market, they don't have to just cut someone and get something back in return. I agree with you. The Lakers do stand out to me as a team that's a loser. I'm trying to think if there's any other losers that stand out. Frank Vogel. I think he's he's been in a tough spot for a while now, but I'd guess that he's probably gone. Mark pointed out that Jalen Smith's tenure with the Pacers did not get off to a great start, so I'm sure he's not feeling too happy right now, but at least he's in a better situation maybe and can play some more, get a little change of scenery going. Trying to think who else is a potential loser. What do we think about what the Blazers did? I know it wasn't today, so we didn't talk about it as much, but trading away CJ, the moves that they've made, their whole thing has been, we cleared, we're going to have a lot of cap room, a lot of flexibility. And they're basically saying that after moving CJ, Norm Powell, Robert Covington, Larry Nance Jr., that they have flexibility and they can put other pieces around Dame. We'll see if Dame is happy and wants to stay there long term, I think his like loyalty and patience is going to be tested. But what do we think about what the Blazers did?
It's kind of tough to gauge from today. Obviously, the Jeremy Grant rumors were where you started. It's still weird to me that Yusuf Nurkic is still on the roster. If like you're really trying to commit to this clearing cap space thing, although I'm pretty sure he's said publicly that he like really wants to be with Damian Lillard long term.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. They weren't able to flip Eric Bledsoe or Justice Winslow anywhere else. I'd say definitely kind of weird for the Blazers. There was another team. Oh, the Wizards too were another team, not only with the kind of wild Porzingis trade, but they also didn't do a whole lot to either clear this massive big man logjam that they have now with Porzingis, Daniel Gafford, Thomas Bryant, Vernon Carey Jr. now is in this roster, and they didn't really address like a lot of their guard depth. They traded away Aaron Holiday. I think the Wizards also were really kind of weird with what they didn't do just as much as what they did do with that big trade.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any moves from earlier that we didn't discuss. Let's see. There was the Serge Ibaka trade. We didn't really get into that much. Any thoughts on that move? I think there was a lot of moving parts there, but Ethan, do you have that trade pulled up right now? Can you share those details?
Yeah, let me grab it. So it was so the Pistons got Marvin Bagley from the Kings, which was kind of maybe the biggest name, arguably biggest, name in the trade, kind of a reset for him. And then the Kings got Josh Jackson and Trey Lyles from Detroit. They also got Dante DiVincenzo from the Bucks. And then Milwaukee got 2 second-round picks and Serge Ibaka. And they sent Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye to the Clippers. That was the whole trade.
Any thoughts on that? It happened right before we started the stream, so we really get a chance to break it down. But any thoughts there?
It kind of reminded me of when the Pistons got Hamidou Diallo, and he was in the last year of his deal, and they were just trying to see if he had anything, and then they wound up keeping him. So maybe it works out for Marvin Bagley. I don't know. Marvin Bagley and with Jeremy Grant still there, that's going to be interesting to see. Kate Cunningham is there, so Sadiq Bey. I mean, I'll tune into a couple Pistons games, see what's going on, but I'll be curious to see because Marvin Bagley, like more than a lot of other guys that actually got moved, needed a new environment. So maybe this sort of rejuvenates him in some way, even if it is Detroit and they're not necessarily winning right now. But for him to be able to sort of grow and spread his wings for the last couple months of the season, maybe that's possible.
I agree. I think if you're a team like we talked about this earlier a little bit, Detroit, Orlando, one of these rebuilding teams, you should be trying to go after those buy low young players and hope that they come to you. Yeah, exactly. Like hope that they join your team. The change of scenery helps them out and they can break out and do things they hadn't done before. Like I went on the Motor City podcast a few days ago. We talked about or Motor City Hoops, and they had talked about what the Pistons could do. And I mentioned Bagley. There were like a number of those young guys. Jalen Smith is one I mentioned too. That if you're a young team, you should absolutely be targeting those guys, especially because you don't have to give very much to get them. Like Bagley, they gave up like a 2nd round pick and something else, but I mean, he was a guy that was picked very, very high a few years ago. Like I think those are great moves if you're a young rebuilding team. So that was one that definitely wanted to mention. I think we'll be wrapping this up here in a few minutes. Anyone else have any topics you guys want to hit on, or if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. We'll wrap this up pretty shortly here, but we had talked about possible buyout candidates. I think Tristan Thompson was one that came up earlier. Goran Dragic, obviously, Gary Harris. Nikias, you did a great article about Gary Harris and possible destinations for him if he is bought out. Can you share some of those destinations that you mentioned and, what you think Gary Harris can bring to a team?
I had Denver at the top of the list, which one, it's kind of a duh thing. He's there before, but like they could use some more guard depth. They could use some more shooting because the floor has been a little bit cramped at times for Nikola Jokic this year in light of all the injuries. Obviously is a good cutter, good off-ball mover, which vibes well with Jokic. We've already seen that before again. I had Boston as another spot, which, they probably could definitely use another guard now since they have all these open roster spots. Schroeder's out of there. Aaron Nesmith was one of the guys that I mentioned in the piece. Like, hey, he's one of the guys to be trying to rotate in there between him and Romeo Langford. Like, okay, where's the consistent production coming from? And so now you remove one of those guys, like Gary Harris, I feel has a ready-made spot if he goes there. I also mentioned Brooklyn. We'll see what their roster situation looks like in light of the trade, how many roster spots they may have open. But if Joe Harris is going to have the second surgery and may not be back this season, or if he is, it's going to be in the postseason at some point, like Gary Harris would also help.
For sure. So let's wrap up on this note. Because some of the contending teams made moves today. We saw Phoenix was pretty active. We saw the Nets, who entered today as the championship favorite despite their losing streak and the recent drama. They're a totally different team now. They look very different. Thoughts on the favorites in both conferences now? I know some Warriors fans are apparently upset. The Suns were active. The Bucks, didn't do a whole lot, but add Serge Ibaka. What are we thinking as far as the favorites in both conferences?
I would have liked to have seen Miami do something other than the KZ Okpala, for a second round pick thing. That is an important move. I just don't think we're going to see the effects of that till like the summer. I thought that they probably would have pulled off, the PJ Washington thing or Nicholas Batum or something like that. I think we all know that they're going to get somebody in the buyout market, and Caleb Martin's probably going to have to get converted at some point from a two-way to a full roster spot. So that'll probably round out their roster. But I would have liked to have seen them do something, given that the Nets and Sixers did what they did and were active, and the Bucks did a little something around the margins as well. So, they are getting Victor Oladipo though. So, we'll see how that impacts them going forward. And I think that they're banking on him being, viable and healthy, not a star like he was, but a contributor. And he might even have to compete with Gabe Vincent for minutes initially. So we'll see.
Well, and Markieff Morris back too. He's been out since the Jokic thing, and I think there was a report a few weeks ago that he might miss the season, but now I think he's pushed back against that, and he may be coming back sooner than later. So, yeah, I think their additions are kind of just getting guys healthy and back in the lineup. Nikias, you're about to say something.
I was just going to say, you know what? Lost my train of thought.
I forgot my question even was. Both conferences.
Okay, there we go. Like heading into today's, I guess, trade deadline and stuff, like Phoenix and Milwaukee were my favorites in both conferences. I would probably still have the same. I will say, also heading into this, I felt like Milwaukee and Miami were kind of my top two in the East in terms of like championship equity. I think this move with Brooklyn, if things go right, then I think they're back in that top tier for me. I think they did address a lot of the defensive concerns. So I obviously keep an eye on Brooklyn, and people are going to be keeping an eye on Brooklyn anyway, just because of the firepower that they have. But I'm still with Milwaukee, Phoenix right now.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Nikias there. I think it's Milwaukee and Phoenix for both sides right now. And funny enough, they both play tonight, so that'll be a lot of fun to watch after this. But honestly, from Phoenix side, to add more on that, I think Torrey Craig was a really underrated move. Obviously, he was loved in the locker room last year, but getting a versatile wing that can shoot, defend, I think that helps him out a lot. And then just based off of how their roster looks right now, I still won't be surprised if they make a move in the buyout market. I know their roster is currently full, but adding Aaron Holiday makes me think maybe Elfrid Payton could be expendable. Maybe they could open up a roster spot that way and go out and get a buyout guy. So that makes sense to me. But I think Phoenix and Milwaukee for sure are definitely atop what I would say are the best two teams right now.
Yeah, and I think I'd, again, go with Phoenix and Milwaukee. Brooklyn, the amount of pieces they brought in, I do think Seth Curry is going to be really, really nice, just the way he can be on and off the ball, depending on if you're going to have Kyrie out there, if you're going to have Patty Mills, if you're going to have Kevin Durant bringing the ball up. I really like Seth Curry's fit, along with obviously Ben Simmons whenever he comes back. But I think Milwaukee is still so good. And whether or not Serge Ibaka ends up being kind of a valuable rotation player for them, they're really good. And the Suns, like Evan and Nikias both said, just made two very easy, smart moves. So I don't think anything changed how I feel today.
Just really quickly, just to add on, just everything as a whole from today and even this week. But I can't imagine the last time I've had like this much star power, like notable, like general basketball fans would know their names getting moved during this week. I mean, Alex, anyone else, like this feels like one of the more like star power deadlines that we've seen in a really long time, at least for me covering the NBA full time.
Yeah, like I want to say, what was the year? Like I think 2015 had quite a few big name trades, but there's been, certain off seasons that had just a lot, like the off season we saw Anthony Davis and a lot of those, Chris Paul, Jimmy Butler, a lot of those guys changed teams. But as far as the trade deadline, this has been really crazy. And yeah, I mean, we mentioned it earlier. You got James Harden, Ben Simmons, Domantas Sabonis, CJ McCollum, Kristaps Porzingis, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, that's a crazy list. Halliburton, like it's what I'm saying. And like you said, and then for casual fans or like just, other fans too, they recognize names like Serge Ibaka and guys like that too. So I'm sure fans are freaking out right now. I mean, I'm glad we were able to do this and that a lot of things happened during our stream here, because I think we were worried that after how crazy Tuesday was, that today would be kind of quiet. I know last night, like Mike Scotto was on our Twitter Spaces, and he was saying that maybe we'd see like 6 to 8 trades today, but sure enough, we saw a ton of moves. I don't know what the exact count is, but it was definitely more than that. So I'm just glad that we had an interesting trade deadline. I know earlier in the year too, it seemed like it was going to be really quiet because teams weren't really having conversations. They were, ravaged by COVID, and they were just trying to survive and, use their exemptions and make sure they had a full roster. So like teams weren't even having trade conversations. So to go from like no conversations happening in December to one of the craziest trade deadlines of all time, it's a lot of fun. I think the part of it too is like we just talked about, the favorites in both conferences. You don't have like a guaranteed clear cut favorite to win it all. Like it is pretty open, relatively speaking, compared to most years. Like you don't have like a Warriors-esque super team that every team is just scared of. So there's no point even going all in. I think a lot of teams feel good about their chances either as a contender or, going into the playoffs. So they're pushing their chips to the middle of the table. I think, Evan, you also wrote about how the play-in tournament and those play-in spots have given teams like Sacramento and New Orleans some confidence, and they feel like they can push for a playoff spot. How do you think the play-in tournament has impacted the way teams are approaching the deadline? And I think this could be a trend going forward, like you wrote.
Yeah, honestly, that was the first thing I thought of, with just really zooming out and just getting through that Tuesday and digesting everything that happened. It's like these two teams looking ahead now, we saw what Portland and San Antonio are doing now. They decide they're going to be tanking the rest of the season and not pushing those chips in. But Portland and New Orleans and Sacramento, these two teams are fighting only for the 10 seed. They're multiple games out of the 8 seed right now. So it's really just kind of two desperate teams fighting to get back in the playoffs. I know I like those moves long-term for both sides. Even Sabonis still, I know he'll be like an immediate all-star for them down the road with De'Aaron Fox, but obviously I think Indiana won that trade in the end. But overall, I think that you'll see these teams like vying for these 9-10 seeds in each conference. It opens up the window for other teams. Like instead of like 15 teams competing for a playoff spot, you might have potentially 20 to 22 competing for a playoff spot. And that just opens up more eager GMs, eager front offices to say, let's just go for it and try to make that playoff push.
For sure. All right. We've been on here for 3 hours now. Tons of crazy moves. Also, make sure you guys check out basketballnews.com because we have a bunch of articles up right now about the different trades. I know Nikias and Steve are going to have fun tonight with the dunker spot. So check out that podcast as well. That face. By the way, I want to give you guys credit too, because you guys have been working your asses off over the last few weeks, writing some amazing articles. Nikias, you've been pumping out articles and the podcast. Ethan's been killing it on the newsline front, making sure we have all the latest news and rumors on the site. Evan's been helping with that and churning out articles left and right. Brian's been killing it on the article front too. So I want to thank you guys and the rest of our staff too, because this time of year is not easy, but I'm really proud of the work we've been putting out there. And I feel like every day there's like tons of new articles on the site, podcasts. It's just been a lot of fun, being able to churn out content. So shout out to you guys. You've been working really hard.
Thank you. And now we turn to the buyout market.
Yeah, it never ends.
Yeah.
And I feel like now people are like looking ahead to next offseason too. Like, okay, well now that that's over, is Malcolm Brogdon, Christian Wood, Miles Turner, like, is it an offseason move now? Even like John Collins and those guys, is it like, it's not, oh, they're not trading him. It's they're pushing the decision back to the offseason. So it really never ends. But now we can get to some actual basketball talk instead of some transactional type stuff. I feel like one of our strengths as a company is being able to actually break down the games and the X's and O's. So excited to actually watch these teams come together and break down their play. Brandon Smith says, can't wait for all the slander, Nikias, on the dunker spot. Appreciate you, Earl. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys for watching this too. I just looked at the numbers and we had 33,000 people watching our show today. So that makes us very happy.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
we appreciate everyone tuning in. That
He said, "Oh no."
No, that means so much. Like watching these shows, reading our articles, consuming the podcasts, like that's awesome. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we're gonna do these more often. We try to do these live streams, or Twitter Spaces, which we did last night. We're gonna try to schedule them pretty regularly. We do some watch parties too, where we bring some players on and we all react to a game together. So make sure you guys are following Basketball News. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our content. We have tons of podcasts as well. We mentioned the Dunker Spot. We have Nothing But Bets, which Evan hosts, which is a gambling show. Rex Chapman, Atan Thomas, James Posey, they have shows through Basketball News too. So definitely make sure you guys subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Basketball News. And I want to thank our sponsors one last time too, Prize Picks and Ticket Smarter. Make sure you guys use that promo code NEWS for Prize Picks, and you guys can get $100 instantly deposited into your account. And then Ticket Smarter, check out their site for tons of live events, concerts, sporting events, theater events. So check out Ticket Smarter. And as you mentioned before too, we have footballnews.com and golfnews.com coming soon. We're launching those this year. So we are very excited about that. There's more information about our raise on seasonvest.com. So we have a pinned tweet right now on our Twitter account. So, we're basically trying to raise money to launch those other outlets. So definitely check that out if you get a chance. And yeah, we appreciate everyone hanging out with us here. As Nikias mentioned, I know we have an article coming up tonight about buyout candidates. I know, Nikias, you're working on a trade deadline reaction, a recap of all the different moves that happened. So check out basketballnews.com. We're going to continue to pump out this trade-related content and then continue to cover the NBA. One last thing. Looks like we have not a crazy scoop here, but the Raptors are waiving Drew Eubanks. So that just happened. Just want to throw one last little.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we gotta stay and break this down for like 2 hours. So
I saw somewhere that the Rockets are waiving DJ Augustine also. So there's that.
Ooh.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. Well, yeah. So again, I'm sure that will come up in the buyout market article later, so you guys can check that out. As I mentioned, make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys follow us. And yeah, hopefully we'll be back soon here with another live stream or Twitter Spaces. We appreciate everyone watching, and thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us. Till next time, take care.